Chapter 419. The snow crane's figure streaked across the horizon. It spread its wings and soared, transforming into a stream of light and disappearing into the distance in an instant. Still within the silhouetted snow crane, Yen Zhaoge crossed his arms before his chest, curling his lips. The entrance of the dimensional passageway here is even more unstable than the one in our eight extremities world. If I did not see wrongly, it seems to be shifting along the spiritual chi pulse of this world. We will have to properly search for it. Fortunately, based on the time that the 10-character heavenly rainbow has existed in our eight extremities world, there is still a very long time before the passageway closes. Yen Zhaoge raised his head and looked at the sun hanging high up in the sky. Yes, if the time flow of the two worlds is the same. Everyone was flying with the snow crane as they observed their surroundings curiously. After glancing at Feng Yunsheng and Ning Longtu, Su Fei secretly sent a sound transmission to Yen Zhaoge. Zhaoge, I remember that the snow crane was the symbol of your mother, Senior Snow, that year. The corners of Yen Zhaoge's mouth twitched slightly as he answered with a bitter smile. I've let senior apprentice brother Su see a joke. To tell you the truth, coming here this time is precisely due to the clues left behind by my mother that year. Xue Fei shook his head. Why would I laugh at you? It's just that I didn't expect your mother to be related to another world. When I first entered the sect, I even saw her once. Connecting this to the matter of Xue Chuqing suddenly disappearing in the eight extremities world, Xue Fei's first thought was that she had come from this world, rather than just having discovered this place by pure coincidence. Yen Zhaoge said, Anyway, let's see where this snow crane will ultimately land. Who knows, we might be able to obtain some information related to this world. We are completely unfamiliar with this place. We must first gain some understanding of it and ensure a path of retreat back to the eight extremities world. Yen Zhaoge rubbed his temples rather irritably. The current situation in the eight extremities world is rather delicate, with various conflicts about to erupt at any moment. This is not the time to be pioneering a new world, especially when, swiveling his head to glance at Feng Yunsheng, Yen Zhaoge knit his brows. Especially when junior apprentice Sister Feng still has to participate in the extreme Yin bout. Feng Yunsheng's expression was currently rather calm. Feeling something, she turned to meet Yen Zhaoge's gaze. Seemingly understanding Yen Zhaoge's thoughts, she shook her head slightly, indicating that she was fine. Su Fei said, Right now, we are completely clueless about this place. We also don't know what kind of experts there are here. It's best to be cautious. The entrance to the passage isn't fixed in this world. So even if someone were to rush over from the 10-character heavenly rainbow, their landing point in this world wouldn't be the same as ours, so it'd be difficult to coordinate with them. Yen Zhaoge nodded, saying, It's also not that just anyone can come over. The chaotic flows of space can rip people apart at any time. The reason why we can be so safe is because of this snow crane. Xue Fei hesitated for a moment before saying, Speaking of this snow crane, it would be rather inconceivable if the ritual was left behind by your mother. Although Senior Xue's cultivation was not weak back then, it seems that he could not have left behind such a powerful ritual. Yen Zhaoge spread his palms apart. Perhaps it is some sort of treasure. According to what his father Yen Di had said, while his mother had concealed her origins, her cultivation base should have been real. With Xue Chuqing's cultivation at the time, it was indeed impossible for her to set up such a powerful ritual. As they conversed, the snow crane's silhouette gradually dimmed and began to descend. Yen Zhaoge's spirits rose. Gazing over carefully, he saw a white pillar of light shooting into the skies amidst a primordial forest. The pure white snow crane landed within the pillar of light, gradually vanishing, while the figures of Yen Zhaoge and the others landed on the ground within the pillar of light. Looking downwards numerous spirit patterns lit up on the ground, profound and complex. Feng, Yunsheng, Shui Fei, Ahu, and the others all involuntarily let out sighs of admiration. Yan Zhaoge's pupils dilated slightly. This legacy of spirit patterns indeed has some resemblance to those of before the Great Calamity. It was not that people of later generations had researched on the foundations of their predecessors, starting anew from scratch. Instead, it was like the complete legacy of the martial civilization of before the Great Calamity, not having been severed due to the Great Calamity. As they landed, the white pillar of light that shot into the skies gradually vanished, the numerous spirit patterns on the ground also beginning to dissipate. The white light congregated at the center of the spirit patterns. Looking over, Yan Zhaoge saw that there seemed to be a mirror there. More accurately, it was half a mirror. Coming before the mirror, Yan Zhaoge saw that it was a simple round mirror that had been split into two from the middle. There was only one half here, the whereabouts of the other half unknown. Shui Fei and the others appraised the mirror curiously. Yan Zhaoge picked up this half mirror, infusing his true essence within, carefully feeling it for a moment. This half mirror is the core of the mechanism. After a long time, Yan Zhaoge let out a long breath. There should still be another half that has not been lost, instead being buried somewhere in this world. He muttered within his heart, the mirror-dimensional traversing art, it really is an ancient technique of before the Great Calamity. Ahu looked curiously at the half mirror above Yan Zhaoge's head. Young master, can this thing help us return to the Eight Extremities world? Yan Zhaoge tapped lightly on the surface of the mirror, twice, not in a short period of time. In order to complete the mechanism just now, the power accumulated within this half mirror has been temporarily depleted, requiring time to recover. The time that the 10-character heavenly rainbow can be maintained for is limited at the end of the day, and we might not be able to make it in time. Feng, Yunsheng pondered. Perhaps it lies in the other half of the mirror? Yan Zhaoge snapped his fingers. That's right. With that half mirror, we should be able to more easily find that dimensional passageway entrance that follows the movement of the spirit vein here. Also, after the two broken mirrors have been completely merged together, there might still be other wondrous uses for them. Scanning their surroundings, Shui Fei sent a sound transmission to Yan Zhaoge. If this mechanism was set up by Senior Shui to help you or Chief come over, there should be some information left behind, right? Yan Zhaoge kept that half mirror, similarly appraising their surroundings. I think so too, having searched for a long time, yet still unable to find any traces of it. Yan Zhaoge could not help but feel rather puzzled. Shui Fei was also very helpless. It looks like there isn't. Or perhaps it was discovered by someone beforehand and taken away. Yan Zhaoge stroked his lower chin. Whatever the case, let's first try to find the other half of the mirror and ensure that we can return to the Eight Extremities world in time. Shui Fei said, I had originally hoped that Senior Shui could have left behind some information to let us know the general situation here. Now, we can only slowly probe around. I also don't know the specific situation of this world, what kind of people there are. Looking at the ground beneath his feet, Yan Zhaoge smiled. Very soon, someone will come knocking on our door on their own accord, answering our questions. With the white light shooting into the heavens here, just now, it could be seen clearly from far away. It would definitely have drawn the attention of others. When we were brought flying by the silhouetted snow crane, I noticed that there were signs of human activity along the way. Having said thus, just a moment later, the expressions of Yan Zhaoge and the others all changed as they felt that someone was currently in the midst of approaching. To be continued. Chapter 420. His movement speed is very fast, but I can't feel any strong or chi fluctuations. Whose ears twitched as he asked curiously, is it some kind of special movement technique? What a strange, martial art, Su Fei said. It is very likely that it is not completely the same as the martial legacies of our eight extremities world. Yen Zhaoge was also listening attentively to the newcomer's movements. It is not strange. After all, it is two different worlds. Actually, as compared to the differences in martial arts, I am more concerned about how different the language here is from ours. After all, even in the eight extremities world, the dialects of different places are also very different. If we do not use the common language, only using their own dialects, it would be very hard for people of different places to understand what the other is saying. Yen Zhaoge smacked his lips, wanting to find someone to understand the situation of this world. But if there is a language barrier, that would be awkward. Ahu asked, "Young master, how about you not show yourselves first? I will interact with the people here." We currently have no idea how strong the other party is, and it is very hard for us to judge. There might even be some strange arts that we do not know of. Having always been by Yen Zhaoge's side, other than being a retainer, Ahu had also been Yen Zhaoge's bodyguard for a very long time. While Yen Zhaoge's cultivation base was higher now, Ahu's way of thinking was still with Yen Zhaoge's safety as his #1 priority. While he was usually mischievous when he was serious, he was still extremely reliable and responsible. In a brand new world, everything was foreign, unknown, and even dangerous. At this time, as a retainer, Ahu's heart was already completely taut. Yen Zhaoge waved his hands. If there really is a danger that even so many people cannot deal with, you alone would be no different from sending yourself to your death. Relax a little. While we are unable to judge the strength of the newcomer now, it should also not be too high. Comprehending one art, comprehending all arts. The great Tao of the world. All arts converge to their origins. While there are differences, the higher one goes, the more they tend to be the same. Yen Zhaoge gazed into the distance. Just like us, and the flame devils, a martial saint and a flame devil king standing before you, the feeling they give you is completely different from that of a martial grandmaster or a great flame devil. Unless the other party has the intention, it is possible for you to misjudge the difference between an essence spirit martial grandmaster and an essence talisman martial grandmaster, but you will definitely be able to clearly distinguish between a martial saint and a martial grandmaster. Yen Zhaoge and the others temporarily concealed themselves within the dense forest. Very quickly, a figure flickered, appearing before them. It was a tall, middle-aged man with bronze skin, round eyes, and a rough face. His body seemed to contain an explosive power that was extremely powerful. His eyes, in particular, shot out divine light in all directions and were abnormally sharp. Yen Zhaoge nodded to himself. At the very least, he looks like a human on the outside, no different from us. He's not a mutant. Just as he was observing, he saw the burly man's eyes flash as he looked in Ing Longtu's direction. The people in the dense forest all frowned. Ing Longtu's cultivation base was the lowest among all of them, but he possessed the celestial dipper physique, which allowed him to control his chi and blood freely. His mind was clear and flawless. If he focused on hiding, it would be very difficult for others to detect his presence. Yen Zhaoge stroked his lower chin. Is it that this person has concealed himself deeply, his strength higher than I thought? Or is it that due to some special reason, his sensory abilities are extremely powerful? Then, after glancing at the place where Ing Longtu was concealed, that burly man's gaze turned to where Feng Yinsheng was. Yen Zhaoge coughed lightly, appearing. Seeing Yen Zhaoge, that burly man's expression was filled with wariness as he no longer looked in the direction of Feng Yinsheng and Ing Longtu, instead staring straight at Yen Zhaoge. Yen Zhaoge spread his hands apart, first asking, "How do I address you?" He first used the common language of the eight extremities world. This was not nonsense, instead being the common language of the eight extremities world, having been developed from the civilizations of pre-Great Calamity times, being the most systematic and also closest to the civilization of pre-Great Calamity times. In terms of pronunciation, he was also trying his best to get closer to that of ancient times. While there would still be some differences, if Yan Zhaoge were to evaluate it, it was not due to luck that this language had become the current mainstream of the Eight Extremities world. If the world before them also inherited the civilization of pre-Great Calamity times, there should be some similarities between them. In the end, that burly man did not react in the slightest, as his gaze was slightly vacant, his expression even more vigilant. He clearly looked like he didn't understand at all. Frowning, Yan Zhaoge pondered for a moment before repeating, "How do I address you?" This time, Feng Yinsheng, Hu, and the others felt it to be unfamiliar, not being easy to understand. The language that Yan Zhaoge used this time was the common language of pre-Great Calamity times. For example, compared to the current language of the Eight Extremities world, it was like the difference between classical and vernacular. Some words had the same meaning, but without having studied them systematically, it would be very hard for one to understand their complete meaning. This was what it meant to be able to recognize each word individually, but unable to understand them when put together. According to Yan Zhaoge's guess, the martial legacy that his mother cultivated in was a relatively complete version of the martial arts of pre-Great Calamity times. Therefore, the language that she used was likely not lost through the generations, being the common language of pre-Great Calamity times. This time, that burly man seemed to have a slight reaction. Even as he was vigilant, he looked at Yan Zhaoge inexplicably. Yan Zhaoge felt rather helpless under that gaze. The other party seemed to be asking, "Do you even know how to speak properly?" Carefully observing him, Yan Zhaoge felt that this person's attitude towards the language of pre-Great Calamity times was like that of Su Fei, Feng Yinsheng, and the others. This way, the greatest possibility is that the language here is the same as that of the Eight Extremities world, also originating from the civilization of pre-Great Calamity times. However, it has its own unique development, being completely different from the current language of the Eight Extremities world. Yan Zhaoge gradually came to a realization. It was just that while he understood, it still gave Yan Zhaoge a bit of a headache. With the language barrier, the word awkward was placed right in front of him. Anyway, they all evolved from the language of pre-Great Calamity times. If he says a few more words, I might be able to understand the gist of it. Yan Zhaoge sighed. If it really doesn't work, I'll even use sign language, even though it looks a little embarrassing. As he thought this, Yan Zhaoge said a few more words in the ancient language of pre-Great Calamity times. That burly man stared at Yan Zhaoge blankly and warily. Back then, in order to understand the current civilization of the Eight Extremities world, Yan Zhaoge had browsed through many books, understanding many different languages. Now, Yan Zhaoge unleashed his knowledge of languages to the maximum. It was not just the ancient language, but also the various dialects currently circulating in the Eight Extremities world that were different from the common vernacular, yet had all been derived from the ancient language. With each word, he observed that burly man's reaction. Feng Yunsheng and the others stared wide-eyed and tongue-tied at this scene, only feeling that Yan Zhaoge had refreshed their understanding of the world once more. Who swallowed his saliva, sending via sound transmission with his orochi, "Young master, you're so impressive," Yan Zhaoge sent via sound transmission. "Do you think I'm willing to go through so much trouble with a language barrier? Even if I capture him and want to interrogate him, it won't work. I first have to ascertain what language it is such that he can understand me, and I can also understand him." As he said this, he saw that the burly man still had a blank yet wary look on his face, at the same time growing more and more irritable. Just as Yan Zhaoge was about to switch to another dialect, that burly man grew impatient as, with a low roar, He lunged over. That's not good, is it? Yen Zhaoge rolled his eyes. To be continued. Chapter 421. Yen Zhaoge was proficient in many languages, causing Feng Yunsheng, Su Fei, and the others to be dazzled by his words. However, his true target always looked like he didn't understand what he was saying, causing Yen Zhaoge to not know whether to laugh or to cry. The other party seemed to have an explosive temper, finally unable to suppress his anger as he lunged towards Yen Zhaoge. As he made his move, the hearts of the Broad Creed mountain martial practitioners here trembled slightly. The other party's speed was as fast as lightning, as he had already arrived before Yen Zhaoge in an instant. Su Fei and whose gazes hardened as they saw numerous patterns of light actually light up on the surface of this person's skin. It was as though numerous runes had been inscribed on his body. On this person's fingers, numerous streams of light condensed, transforming into existences that resembled sharp claws as they clawed towards Yen Zhaoge. Within his body, he still couldn't feel the existence of aura qi or true essence, only having a small amount of foundation inner qi. Generally speaking, this should be a characteristic of body refinement martial practitioners who had yet to cultivate qi into aura qi. However, the powerful qi and blood contained within this big man's body far surpassed that of body refinement martial practitioners. Feng Yunsheng stared fixedly at the other party's eyes, seeing that the big man's pupils had shockingly turned jade green at this moment, filled with brutality and bloodthirstiness, resembling that of a ferocious beast. Staring fixedly at Yen Zhaoge, the big man clawed out with his claws, light streaking through the air, leaving behind marks that did not dissipate even after a long time, as though space itself had been broken apart. The patterns of light flickering around his body suddenly transformed into surging thunderbolts, enveloping the surroundings. Those were true thunderbolts, snakes of electricity leaping about, seemingly unceasingly piercing through the air as a series of explosive crackling sounds resounded. The surrounding primitive forest began to be hacked into charcoal. Dark clouds filled the sky, the rumbling of thunder resounding as numerous streaks of lightning traversed the dark clouds. As the lightning appeared, the big man's speed increased once more. Where the lightning passed, it caused one's heart to feel numb and stiff. Yen Zhaoge was speechless. I haven't even said anything about capturing you and slowly interrogating you, and you've already made the first move. Feeling the piercingly cold winds and violent lightning shooting over, seeing the terrifying claws already grabbing at him, Yen Zhaoge shook his head. He raised his hands, accurately grabbing the other party's wrists, preventing those flickering claws from advancing any further. The burly man was shocked. He felt that his hands were tightly bound, and his wrists were almost broken. Yen Zhaoge smacked his lips, saying, "The first person I've met in this world, I had originally intended to interact amicably. Still, from the looks of it now, I can save myself the trouble." You might not understand this sentence. That big man indeed didn't understand, only wanting to break free from Yen Zhaoge's grasp now. Unable to move his hands, he moved his feet, wanting to kick towards Yen Zhaoge. However, even as Yen Zhaoge had spoken, he had already kicked out, striking that big man's lower abdomen. The burly man's eyeballs almost popped out of their sockets. His knees went weak, and his whole body trembled. Yen Zhaoge looked mildly at him. "I might as well just take you down, then see if you have any objects or scrolls on you. I'll compare them to your language here." The burly man was in unbearable pain. Blue veins were bulging on his forehead, and his eyes were bloodshot. He kept gasping for breath. The madness and bloodlust in his eyes grew stronger and stronger, and the patterns on his body burned brighter and brighter. Seeing this, Yen Zhaoge raised his brows slightly. "Oh!" The big man roared madly, the patterns of light surging madly on his entire body, blue lightning spreading like a frenzied tide as it gradually condensed into a silhouette amidst space. Within the silhouette was a six-legged leopard that was covered in lightning, roaring madly. Yen Zhaoga narrowed his eyes into slits. Six-legged flying lightning leopard? That big man's figure seemed to expand, the rumbling of thunder resounding from within his body as power surged madly. A crazed look appeared within his gaze as he stared fixedly at Yen Zhaoga, as if he would only let the matter rest after ripping him to shreds. Seeing this, Yen Zhaoga smiled, exerting more force with his hands, even as he crushed the bones of that big man's wrists. He also shattered all the bones and meridians of his arms. An even greater force resembled the pressure of Mount Tai as it instantly suppressed that violent lightning into tiny sparks, limited to a circumference of a foot as it was unable to wreak havoc. The big man opened his mouth, but was unable to utter a sound due to the extreme pain. Yen Zhaoga appraised him rather interestedly. Interesting, turning fake into real, transforming one's power into actual lightning and thunderbolts. To martial practitioners, this should only be an ability that can be obtained after stepping into the essence spirit martial grandmaster realm, having refined Orochi into essence and cultivated into an essence spirit. However, this fellow's strength has yet to reach the level of an essence spirit martial grandmaster, let alone refining Orochi into essence. He has not even refined chi into Orochi. However, the chi and blood of his entire body is far from what martial artists can compare to being already comparable to martial grandmasters, manifesting actual thunderbolt while it cannot compare to the level of an essence spirit martial grandmaster. It is still rather powerful. Yen Zhaoga grabbed that big man's arms that had already been reduced to mush. Then he saw streams of light flickering amidst the already mangled flesh and blood of that big man's arms. It was as if an extremely powerful force was unceasingly awakening within his bloodline. This power of you, could it be that it originates from the six-legged flying lightning leopard? Yen Zhaoga clicked his tongue in wonder. At first, I thought that it was a demon that had taken human form. However, from the looks of it now, it is exactly the opposite. Did you refine the bloodline of a demonic beast into your own body, thereby obtaining your power? Before the great calamity, I had never seen anyone cultivating in the martial Tao like this. An original creation after the calamity? Interesting, very interesting. I wonder if it is you alone or the lineage of your clan that you come from, or is it all the people of this world who are like this? Carefully feeling the changes in this big man's body, Yen Zhaoga indeed discovered many uncertainties. Under extreme pain and fury, that big man completely lost his rationality as he let out a series of strange roars. His voice was already no longer that of a human's, instead resembling the roar of a tiger or leopard. The next moment, under everyone's shocked gazes, that big man's entire body was enveloped by patterns of light, his physique actually gradually changing. This person was beastifying. His head gradually turned into the head of a leopard, a tail appearing behind him, a pair of wings of thunder and lightning appearing behind him. His four limbs also turned into the claws of a leopard, his hind legs standing upright on the ground, completely resembling a leopard standing on its hind legs. His two front claws had been shattered by Yen Zhaoga, but two claws shockingly extended from his abdomen, clawing towards Yen Zhaoga. Enveloped by the patterns of light, the flesh and blood of this big man expanded, becoming extremely massive, as he looked like he was about to transform into a six-legged flying lightning leopard that was several feet long, the size of a small mountain. This six-legged flying lightning leopard let out a crazed howl that shocked the heavens, thunder and lightning surging as it gathered the thunderclouds within the sky, descending in a chain. Yen Zhaoga grew more and more excited. Does this mean that the demonic blood in his body has gone out of control, causing a backlash against him? While his strength has increased greatly, He himself has become a demonic beast. Looking at the massive beast before him, Yen Zhaoge sighed in praise. Exchanging a few blows, I instead learnt quite a few things. Indeed, it is still better to directly make a move. P.S. I recommend a book to everyone. Book title: Blue Wolf, book number 306/8826, +/ to prevent blocking. The author is Yun Xiaotian Dao, a fat book of more than 4 million words. The technique is quite unique. To be continued. Chapter 4:22. As the patterns of light on Yen Zhaoge's entire body grew more and more intense, as he completely transformed into a 6-legged flying lightning leopard, the strength of Yen Zhaoge's opponent rose unceasingly. When he finally shapeshifted completely and became a true 6-legged flying lightning leopard, his power surged like the tide. It was as if that person had always been a cage that imprisoned ferocious beasts. Now that the cage had collapsed, the imprisoned beast had finally broken out of the cage. Facing the 6-legged flying lightning leopard that resembled a small mountain as it lunged over, Yen Zhaoge chuckled as he raised his palm, before slamming it downwards. After shape-shifting, that big man's body resembled a small mountain. Let alone standing up, even crouching on the ground, he was still much taller than Yen Zhaoge. However, as Yen Zhaoge raised his palm and then descended, it gave off the feeling that he was much larger than the massive beast before them. It was as if a deity had descended to the mortal world. With a single palm strike, it was as if the heavens were falling. The fur of the 6-legged flying lightning leopard stood on end. Because both of his claws were crippled, the rage stimulated by the pain instantly cooled down. After losing his humanity and turning into a beast, his intuition towards danger became even stronger. At this moment, the threat of death engulfed the 6-legged flying lightning leopard's heart, causing it to instinctively turn around and flee. Therefore, everyone could only see the 6-legged flying lightning leopard that had still been ferociously surging to the heavens a moment ago, resembling a ferocious beast that had escaped its cage, wanting to fight to the death and rip its opponent to shreds. At this moment, facing Yen Zhaoge's raised palm, it suddenly turned and fled. That speed was truly even swifter than when it had lunged towards Yen Zhaoge earlier. Seeing this, Yen Zhaoge could not help but be amused, losing their intelligence and becoming a demonic beast, instead becoming a little more intelligent. While Yen Zhaoge felt amused, whilst also exasperated, Yen Zhaoge had no intention of letting the other party off. His palm still pressed downwards, a force that shook the heavens and the earth, directly breaking the spine of this 6-legged flying lightning leopard. Amidst the rumbling, it was as if a thundercloud had exploded. The flying leopard howled and fell to the ground, its body twitching and unable to move. Looking at it, Yen Zhaoge sighed. Why do you think this is necessary? Even if they didn't speak the same language, they could still slowly try to communicate peacefully and amicably. Why did they have to fight? Although I also feel that it's more efficient to do it by hand. That 6-legged flying lightning leopard's life force was indeed strong. While its body had virtually been broken into two by Yen Zhaoge, it was still not dead, as it even still had some strength remaining, streams of thunder flickering unceasingly on its body. However, at this moment, it had already completely lost all thoughts of resisting as it sprawled on the ground. Its gaze that was looking at Yen Zhaoge was filled with a pleading look. Yen Zhaoge sat down on its back. Nonchalantly, the flying leopard instantly letting out another mournful wail. "Let me see if you have anything valuable on you," Yen Zhaoge said as he extended his hand towards the ground. Previously, because the burly man had completely transformed into a 6-legged flying lightning leopard, his luggage had been shattered by the fierce lightning. The items inside fell to the ground. Some of them were preserved, while others were blasted into powder by the lightning. Yen Zhaoge used his aura qi to draw the preserved items into his hands before beginning to inspect them. Feng, Yunsheng, Su Fei, Ahu and Ing Longtu now approached as well, looking at the massive beast that Yen Zhaoge was seated on. Senior apprentice brother, Yen, this leopard was transformed from that person? Han Long looked curiously at that six-legged flying lightning leopard. While inspecting the items within his hands, Yen Zhaoge casually answered, "That's right." Feng Yunsheng appraised it a few times before saying, "It's already completely a demonic beast. The spiritual qi within its flesh and blood is abundant, being completely different from that of a human." Weighing a seal within his hands, Yen Zhaoge said simply, "It's a special cultivation technique. I suspect that it is refining the demonic beast's bloodline into one's own body. Afterwards, one would no longer cultivate qi like us, instead using the power of the demonic beast's bloodline as a foundation to raise one's own strength. However, other than providing strength, this demonic beast bloodline should also be unceasingly affecting the cultivator's mind. If due to this or that reason, a person's will collapses, their mind disappearing, the power of the demonic beast might then turn from guest to host, causing the person to finally become a demonic beast, no longer in human form." Yen Zhaoge spread his palms apart. "This person should have been seriously injured by me, his mind gradually dissipating, at the same time also being overwhelmed by rage and hatred. He wanted to live, wanted to resist, wanted to take revenge, finally surpassing his own limits, becoming like this in the end." Su Fei and the others all clicked their tongues in wonder. Still, it really is a unique technique, Not having reached the essence spirit martial grandmaster realm, he is already able to control true thunder and lightning, also possessing some power. Yen Zhaoge smiled. 6 legs like flying, a pair of wings on his back, wind and thunder accompanying as he walks, innately able to control thunder and lightning. This is precisely the innate divine ability of the 6-legged flying lightning leopard, just like how Pan Pan can control fire and water. The shrunken Pan Pan in Feng Yunsheng's embrace blinked his eyes. Yen Zhaoge smiled, stroking Pan Pan's head before saying thoughtfully, "Earlier, I discovered that while the spiritual qi of this world has its own circulation path, it feels very thin, right? No, it shouldn't be said to be thin, but that its circulation method is not beneficial for us human martial practitioners to cultivate in." Hearing his words, Su Fei looked at that 6-legged flying lightning leopard. "You suspect that the spiritual qi here is more suitable for demonic beasts to breathe in and absorb. Therefore, this kind of cultivation technique that induces demonic blood into one's body for refinement, changing one's physique, might not be an exception, instead being very common in this world." Yen Zhaoge clapped lightly. "I indeed suspect this." Saying thus, he leapt off the back of the 6-legged flying lightning leopard, completely shattering its head with a single palm. Since it had already lost its humanity, even if they could communicate, it would still be impossible to get anything out of it. Yen Zhaoge naturally had no need to keep it alive. Not needing Yen Zhaoge's instructions, Ahu walked over happily, opening his shadow shrinking pouch and keeping the corpse of this 6-legged flying lightning leopard. "Young master, what do we do next?" Hearing Ahu's question, Yen Zhaoge sighed. "With the language barrier and the information we have on hand being too little, we should first think of a way to find some living people, letting me study their language and characters before understanding the situation of this world. Still, we have to be fast." There was already no longer anything of value left where they had been. After packing up a little, they left. Within the primordial forest, various demonic beasts of various kinds emerged in an endless stream, seemingly proving some of Yen Zhaoge's guesses. Leaving the primordial forest, they gradually entered the plains. Here, the human population began to gradually grow denser. However, due to the language barrier, Yen Zhaoge and the others were very low-key in their actions. Only when a large manor appeared before their eyes did Yen Zhaoge appraise it carefully for a moment, his eyes instantly lighting up. His gaze was focused on an exquisite loft within the manor. Looking through the open window, he could vaguely see a tall bookshelf, as well as a dazzling collection of books. Seeing this, Ahu scratched his head. "Young master, could it be that you want to steal books?" Yen Zhaoge exasperatedly punched him. "How can you call it stealing when it's a scholar's business?" Chapter 423. Ahu blinked. "Then what do you call the matter of the scholars?" Yen Zhaoge said, solemnly, promoting the cultural exchange between the two worlds, establishing a bridge of communication. Ahu opened his mouth, yet did not utter a sound. By the side, Feng Yunsheng burst out laughing, while Shui Fei smiled bitterly, shaking his head. Han Long had a blank look on his face. Finally, with the lofty aspiration of promoting the cultural exchange between the two worlds, Yen Zhaoge successfully borrowed a large amount of ancient texts from the library of that manor. After a period of study, he finally gained a vague understanding of the language of this world. As he had guessed earlier, the civilizations here also originated from before the Great Calamity. However, because of the Great Calamity, culture had been severed. Everything could only be restarted from the foundations left behind. Therefore, it was also very different from the Eight Extremities world. Fortunately, however, they still originated from the same source, being able to follow certain pathways. After some stumbling, Yen Zhaoge finally gained an initial understanding of this world that they currently resided in. This place was commonly known as the Floating Life World. Like the Eight Extremities world, this place had also been formed after the Great Calamity when the world had shattered. The civilizations of before the Great Calamity had been severed, with only a few remnants remaining. The people living here had re-established their own civilizations. Unlike the Eight Extremities world, currently walking on the same path as the world of before the Great Calamity, the Floating Life world walked on a different path. While there was also a martial civilization here, it was a completely different kind of martial Tao. The martial practitioners of the Floating Life world were known as demonic bloodline cultivators. They refined the bloodline of demonic beasts with their human bodies, then used it as a foundation to cultivate, raising their strength from there. If the descriptions of the environment here in those books are accurate, this Floating Life world should not be as huge as the Eight Extremities world. Yen Zhaoge stroked his lower chin. This way, it will at least be a little easier for us to find the other half of the mirror and determine the location of the dimensional passageway. Shui Fei said, "Even so, we still have to make the best use of our time. Who knows where the entrance of the dimensional passageway is? Traveling also requires time." Yen Zhaoge patted his head. "It is precisely so." Everyone continued onward, nearing a large city. Seeing people coming and going, and hearing the unfamiliar language being spoken, they looked at each other and smiled bitterly. Yen Zhaoge shrugged. It's still better to interact with people first. The ancient book doesn't describe the current situation. Shui Fei frowned. It's fine if they think we're outsiders. However, if we're seen through that we're not from this Floating Life world, it would be hard for us to avoid trouble. Actually, a foreigner's face is already very eye-catching. Yen Zhaoge laughed. There's an old saying that goes, well, children's words carry no harm. Saying thus, Yen Zhaoge leisurely walked and stopped, passing by some hawkers selling snacks, as he roughly observed the amount of money spent by the people here. Knowing that gold and silver could also be used here, Yen Zhaoge stealthily stole away some cakes and candies before leaving behind a bit of silver that far exceeded their value. Then he wandered around the city, following the sound of reading, and found a place that looked like a private school. Yen Zhaoge stood by the window, quietly looking at the teacher inside teaching some children. Even as the children were listening, he was actually listening attentively as well. Seeing this, Feng Yunsheng, Xue Fei, and the others did not have any intention of laughing at him. After the children had left school, Yan Zhaoge was all smiles as he used his half-baked language of the floating life world to try and get close to those children with some cakes and candies. Xue Fei swiveled his head and said to Han Long, there are many children here. Do you know why your senior apprentice brother, Yen, is looking for children from the academy? Han Long shook his head blankly as Xue Fei explained. While children's words carry no harm, there are also differences between children. The children who play around in the marketplace know more about the minor matters of the marketplace. However, what we want to understand now is the broader situation of this world. Therefore, we are looking for these children from the academy. Saying thus, Xue Fei sighed. Also, the children who grow up in the marketplace are more mature, more slippery, and more mischievous. They won't be so easily coaxed by your senior apprentice brother, Yen. At the same time, news will spread quickly, and it will also be easy for news of us and our matters to be leaked. These children from the academy usually come into contact with simpler people. If it isn't the academy, it is their parents at home. Their hearts are also purer. Also, pay attention. The children that your senior apprentice brother Yen is looking for are all dressed in relatively simple clothes. These children's families are able to provide for their education, but they won't be too extravagant or rich. Most of their families are honest and dutiful, believing that it is better to avoid trouble. Even if the children return and mention the strange actions of strangers like us, the chances of news leaking out will also be lower. At the same time, their parents won't give them too much pocket money. Those children from wealthy families won't be easily bought over by your senior apprentice brother, Yen, with just a few pieces of cake. While he had mistakenly entered the floating life world, and his future was uncertain since he had brought Han Long out this time, Xue Fei would make good use of this chance to temper this junior apprentice brother of his. These were all insignificant matters, but Xue Fei mainly hoped that Ing Longtu's thoughts would become more flexible, becoming more and more enlightened. Hearing his words, Ing Longtu nodded thoughtfully. Hu grinned. It really must have been hard for young master not to be taken for a human trafficker. Feng Yunsheng smiled. It should have been hard for him to be able to converse with the locals so quickly. Hu gave a simple and honest laugh. That's right. This time, I really admire young master to the point of prostrating myself in admiration. Yan Zhaoge was actually not relaxed at all at this moment. Learning a new language on his own, and doing so within such a short period of time at that, was not a very comfortable thing. He had to expend a great deal of effort before he could make the students before him understand his questions. Yan Zhaoge just had the feeling that the gazes of these little children before him carried a deep disdain as they looked at him. Already so old, they still can't speak as fluently as us. It was roughly like this. As for the answers of these children, Yan Zhaoge didn't understand most of them, only able to memorize them, even coaxing them to write on the ground before slowly pondering over them himself later. Amongst these, there should also be many children who had misinterpreted his meaning, giving wrong answers. He could only slowly sort them out afterwards. Easy for me? Yan Zhaoge cursed unceasingly within his heart. Suddenly, his mind jolted slightly as he swiveled his head to look. On the streets of the city, someone was dragging a massive prison carriage forward, the mournful roars of beasts resounding from within. Yan Zhaoge thought, from the looks of it, the people here will try to capture strange demonic beasts, then extract their bloodline and use it to groom demonic bloodline cultivators. With this, the children beside him could no longer sit still as they ran towards the prison carriage, watching excitedly. Yan Zhaoge stood where he was, not minding it at all. He had already asked all that he wanted to ask. However, As his gaze fell on a certain person, it involuntarily froze. Sikong Qing. No, it should be said that it's someone like Ouyang Qi and Chang Ning. Yan Zhaoga's pupils dilated slightly. To be continued. Chapter 4:24. Gazing over, Yan Zhaoga saw that above those massive prisoner carriages, there was a pergola. Within the pergola sat people who should be the demonic bloodline cultivators in charge of escorting these massive beasts. On the prisoner carriage, which held the strongest demonic beast, a young girl sat within the pergola, dressed in martial attire. Her features were picturesque. While her hair accessories and makeup were different, her facial features were clearly exactly the same as Sikong Qing's. Seeing this Sikong Qing, the surrounding citizens all let out waves of cheers, appearing extremely reverent. Crossing his hands before his chest, Yan Zhaoga retracted his gaze. Unless we directly capture her, this is not a suitable time to interact with her. Having experienced the matters of Ouyang Qi and Changning back then, Yan Zhaoga was already very calm when he saw similar people now. When he had first arrived in this floating life world, he had still been wondering if he might meet someone similar to Sikong Qing here, just that he had not thought that it would be so soon. Through reading through ancient texts and reading about the geography of this world, as well as conversing with the local children just now, Yan Zhaoga already knew that the place they were currently in was a rather remote corner of the entire floating life world. Yan Zhaoga didn't have much of an opinion about this Sikong Qing, just that he was rather interested in the rune that she might possess. There are already 4 known of them in the 8 extremities world. I wonder how many of them there are in the floating life world. Yan Zhaoga memorized the insignia on that girl's clothes, then no longer paid her any attention. They strolled around the city once more, trying to obtain as much information as they could. Even as Yan Zhaoga was half-guessing, listening to the conversations of others, he also grew more and more proficient in the language of this place. This city is called Muzi. If you head north from this Muzi city, you'll reach the capital of the Furan Kingdom, Kangha City. Yan Zhaoga said to them, "Let's first head all the way to Kangha City before deciding on our next step." He paused for a moment before continuing. Having arrived there, I should have more or less grasped the language of this floating life world. At that time, I should be able to directly converse with demonic bloodline cultivators. Su Fei said, "It's all up to you. This time, we've all become mutes." Yan Zhaoga smiled. "Everyone can learn together with me. It's fine if it's a little slower." Su Fei pondered for a moment before sending a sound transmission over to Yan Zhaoga. "Zhaoga, in my memories, your mother, Senior Snow, is completely different from the demonic bloodline cultivators here. The martial Tao that she cultivates in is rather similar to that of our 8 extremities world. Did he only begin cultivating like us after arriving in the 8 extremities world? Or is it that, hearing Shui Fei's question, Yan Zhaoga did not speak? He now held deep doubts about whether his mother, Shui Chuqing, had come from this floating life world. Perhaps, to this floating life world, Shui Chuqing was merely a passerby. Everyone headed north. In order to save time, those with higher cultivation bases led those with lower cultivation bases. Having already stepped into the essence spirit martial grandmaster realm, the immortal crane wings were no longer of much use to Yan Zhaoga. Thus, he just passed it down to who was quite happy and couldn't bear to part with it. He said happily, "Young master, does this count as adding wings to a tiger? A tiger with wings on its waist should be called a tiger, right?" The corners of Yan Zhaoga's mouth twitched as he laughed. "That's right, you really are a tiger." Traveling and stopping along the way as they neared Kangha City, Yan Zhaoga already had a general grasp of the language of the floating life world. While his pronunciation might still be a little strange, he could at least understand most of the common words used here. He also had a greater understanding of the situation of the world before him. For example, The Furan kingdom before him was only a corner of the floating life world located in the southern region, and the vast territory surrounding it, the Furan kingdom included, all belonged to the control of a clan known as the Blood Cloud clan. To the citizens of the Furan kingdom, the Blood Cloud clan resembled divinities of the heavens, possessing an incomparably exalted position. Being able to enter the Blood Cloud clan to cultivate was something that even the royal family of the Furan kingdom and the ordinary citizens could only dream of. However, if one wanted to become a demonic bloodline cultivator, talent was also required. Under these heavens, most people were unable to bear demonic blood entering their bodies, and those who could bear it also differed in what level of demonic beast bloodline they could bear. If one wanted to become a disciple of the Blood Cloud clan, the requirement for talent was even higher. The ordinary citizens revere the Blood Cloud clan like divinities. This is related to the region. The Blood Cloud clan has always been the ruler of the Furan kingdom, their influence deeply rooted. Therefore, it is very hard to judge from their evaluation what level this Blood Cloud clan belongs to in the entire floating life world. Yen Zhaoge said, "The world in the eyes of ordinary people is completely different from the world in the eyes of martial practitioners. Only upon reaching a certain height will one be able to see the full picture of the world. We need to come into contact with true demonic bloodline cultivators before we can truly understand the level of experts in this world." As they walked, Shui Fei said, "The clues left behind by Senior Shui at the place where we landed might have been completely swept away by someone. It should have been done by some demonic bloodline cultivator, also with a cultivation base that is not low. It is most likely to be the local tyrant of this region, a martial practitioner of the Furan kingdom, or someone of the Blood Cloud clan." Yen Zhaoge snapped his fingers. "It is precisely so." On the other hand, Yen Zhaoge already knew that the girl who resembled Si Kongqing, whom he had seen in Musi City earlier from her attire, was precisely a disciple of the Blood Cloud clan. As they walked, their hearts suddenly jolted slightly as they gazed into the distance in unison. Over there, fluctuations of power emanated as a battle seemed to be currently taking place. After Yen Zhaoge and the others neared, they saw a group of people currently locked in battle with a massive demonic beast amidst numerous mountains. Beneath the mountain, a massive prison carriage toppled to the side, its cage shattered. Looking at that demonic beast, Yen Zhaoge saw that it was a strange python with a pair of wings on its back and a sharp horn on its head. Having broken free of its cage, this strange snake unleashed its full strength, causing the people escorting it to be hard for them to resist, with more than half of them either dead or injured. The human martial practitioners were now in a precarious situation. "It seems to be a mixed blood snake." Yen Zhaoge and the others exchanged glances, nodding slightly. This might be a pretty good opportunity. After having made up his mind, Yen Zhaoge signaled to Hu, who punched out from far away. A terrifying black storm condensed and compressed, a black spear that resembled a solid substance shooting out, directly piercing through the body of that mixed blood snake. The mixed blood snake fell to the ground, struggling on its last breath. Those martial practitioners escorting this demonic beast instantly heaved a sigh of relief. The prison carriage had already been destroyed. While the snake was heavily injured and not dead, it would also be impossible for them to send it on its way again. Therefore, Yen Zhaoge and the others saw those martial practitioners directly extracting its blood on the spot, then preserving it. This way, while the spiritual qi of the demonic blood had mostly dissipated, unable to be used for cultivation, it could still be used for other purposes. Following the direction from which the black storm had come, the martial practitioner in the lead was now searching for them. Seeing Yen Zhaoge and the others, he immediately asked in the language of the floating life world, "May I ask which experts you are?" Chapter 425. While this pair of martial practitioners who had been escorting Huaxi had accidentally allowed Huaxi to escape the cage, causing immense damage, they had mostly maintained their composure in the face of danger and death, also cooperating in battle in an orderly fashion. Looking at their clothes and weapons, they were also neat and of high quality. Yan Zhaoge judged that their backgrounds should not be bad. Indeed, these martial practitioners belonged to a major power of the Furan Kingdom's capital, Kangha City, the Eagle Feather sect. Yan Zhaoge and the others had limited understanding of this Eagle Feather sect, but there was a bright yellow insignia on that damaged prison carriage. Yan Zhaoge already knew that in the various kingdoms of the floating life world, the royal family was similarly used to using bright yellow as the insignia. Like the Eight Extremities world, they all imitated the ancient etiquette of pre-Great Calamity times. While they had developed their own civilizations and started anew, the martial practitioners of the floating life world cultivating in completely different ways, many things were still influenced by the civilizations of pre-Great Calamity times. For a sect to flourish in the capital of a kingdom, either their strength surpassed that of the kingdom or they had a close relationship with the royal family. The Eagle Feather sect was not the Blood Cloud clan, not possessing such great strength, asking them to help escort the prisoner carriage. It clearly belonged to the latter, that they were following the royal family of the Furan Kingdom for a living. Yan Zhaoge was extremely satisfied with this. While they were currently pretending to be people from the wilderness, the royal family of the Furan Kingdom probably hoped to recruit experts or those with ability to submit to them. Yan Zhaoge had no interest, nor did he have the time to be a guest. What he was interested in was who had taken away the stone inscription left behind by his mother. At the same time, conversing with these Eagle Feather sect martial practitioners, Yan Zhaoge also gained a greater understanding of the floating life world from the perspective of martial practitioners. The higher echelon experts of the floating life world were known as the Three Demons and Four Clans. The Blood Cloud clan was one of the four clans, currently the strongest power of the floating life world. In this world, the cultivation of demonic bloodline martial practitioners was rather special. This was because even as they guided the demonic beast bloodline into their bodies to cultivate, the demonic beast bloodline would also unceasingly influence the martial practitioner's mind. If they lost control, the demonic bloodline martial practitioner might break through the taboo boundary, causing the demonic beast bloodline that they had refined into their bodies to awaken. In such a state, demonic bloodline martial practitioners were often called semi-demonized martial practitioners, being much more powerful than their original selves. At the same time, if they continued cultivating with the demonic beast bloodline as their foundation, their rate of improvement would also be much faster than that of ordinary demonic bloodline martial practitioners. However, their humanity had diminished and their bestial instincts had awakened. They were unable to recover and became half beast, half human. Although it was possible for them to change back to their original appearance, the nature of a half-demon martial artist was more like a demon beast that had refined its own bloodline. They were bloodthirsty, brutal, and began to crave human flesh. Cannibalism by half-demon martial artists was a common occurrence. Because of their familiarity with human society and human warriors, the semi-demon warriors were often more ferocious and terrifying than many demon beasts when they wreaked havoc. Yan Zhaoge stroked his lower chin. In the primordial forest, that leopard that was killed by me, when the power of thunder and lightning on his body manifested the silhouette of a six-legged flying lightning leopard, its gaze was filled with wild greed and bloodthirstiness, its strength abruptly rising to a whole new level. That should have been it transforming into a semi-demonized martial practitioner after losing control, right? Su Fei said. After you crippled his arms, he was stimulated, and the demonic beast bloodline in his body awakened a step further. In the end, he completely shed his human form and became a true six-legged flying lightning leopard. Although the temperament of a semi-demonized cultivator had changed greatly, they could still cultivate according to the demonic bloodline cultivator's methods and increase their strength. However, if they lost control a step further, allowing the demonic beast bloodline in their body to completely awaken, the final result would be a great increase in their strength, but they would still turn from human into a demonic beast. From a certain perspective, it was like a demonic beast obtaining new life with the body of a human. Yen Zhaoge curled his lips. I've really sinned. Generally speaking, semi-demonized cultivators were hated by everyone. Under the influence of certain psychological factors, people's wariness and hostility towards semi-demonized cultivators surpassed that of true demonic beasts. Meanwhile, the three demons of the so-called three demons and four clans did not refer to the demonic beasts or the demon race in Yen Zhaoge's memories. Instead, they referred to the current three strongest semi-demonized cultivators of the floating life world. Because they had become semi-demonized and their strength had skyrocketed, these three semi-demonized cultivators could basically also be viewed as the current three strongest experts of the floating life world. While the demonic bloodline cultivators of the four clans were as numerous as the clouds, in a one-on-one battle, not a single one of them would be able to stand against the three demons. Normal demonic bloodline cultivators would mostly surround and kill semi-demonized cultivators as a group. Gradually, the semi-demonized cultivators also began drawing closer to the three demons, being recruited by them, resembling demonic beasts surrounding the side of a beast king as they resisted the human martial practitioners. Other than the three demons and four clans, the floating life world also existed some pure, powerful demonic beasts, existences that people did not dare to provoke lightly. Demonic bloodline cultivators and demonic beasts, semi-demonized cultivators and demonic beasts, all of them clashed with each other. True demonic beasts and semi-demonized cultivators also rarely interacted, mostly fighting and devouring each other's flesh and blood to increase their own strength. The entire floating life world appeared violent and bloodthirsty. Ahu asked, curiously, "Young master, even if Madame was not born in this world that year, she should still have left behind some traces here, right? There's no news of Madame?" Yen Zhaoge shrugged. At the very least, this person of the Eagle Feather sect indeed seems to be unaware of it. Of course, it would not be good for me to ask too deeply. Thus, they traveled together, entering the capital of the Furan Kingdom, Kangha City. While the architectural style of Kangha City also appeared crude, it was naturally much more prosperous than Muzi City by the southern border. That Eagle Feather sect, martial practitioner Qin Shuo, was a rather forthright person as he treated Yen Zhaoge and the others courteously, also introducing them to his master, the chief of the Eagle Feather sect, Gao Fong. Gao Fong was an old man with white hair and a ruddy complexion, looking hale and hearty. This old man seemed to have the same forthright personality as Qin Shuo, but being shrewd with age, he unceasingly attempted to probe out the background of Yen Zhaoge and the others as they conversed. The cultivation techniques of demonic bloodline cultivators were vastly different from the martial civilization of the Eight Extremities world. If they were true demonic beasts, they would instead be able to deduce from the fluctuations of their demonic power and spiritual qi. However, the source of demonic bloodline cultivators' power, as well as the foundation of their cultivation, all lay within the demonic blood within their bodies, after which numerous formless runes were inscribed on their bodies. These things would usually not appear when they were not fighting. Their qi cultivation levels were also very shallow, causing Yen Zhaoge and the others to be very hard-pressed to determine the strength of these floating life world martial practitioners. As for Gao Fong, Qin Shuo, and the others, after Yen Zhaoge and the others had intentionally retracted their auras, they were also unable to see through their cultivation bases, leaving them only able to guess. As for Gao Fong's probing, Yen Zhaoge dealt with it as it came. While Gao Fong, Qin Shua and the others still couldn't understand each other's language. Gao Fong, Qin Shua, and the others still couldn't help feeling suspicious. They still managed to get over it on the surface. After Gao Fong and the others had taken their leave, Yan Zhaoge left his lodgings and strolled about Kangha City, gaining a greater understanding of the Eagle Feather sect from the mouths of others. This sect was indeed attached to the Furan royal family, being one of the few major powers of Kangha City. And the news that drew the most attention in the Furan kingdom in recent days was that an envoy of the Blood Cloud clan would be arriving, holding a talent selection meet in Kangha City. The young geniuses of the Furan kingdom and the surrounding countries would all be able to participate in it, being a major event. While it's a different world, many things are the same. Yan Zhaoge returned to his lodgings, an attendant serving tea. As the tea reached his lips, Yan Zhaoge's nose twitched slightly, his gaze instantly hardening slightly. To be continued. Chapter 426. Yan Zhaoge did not pause in his teacup, as everything was very natural. However, he secretly sent a sound transmission to Feng, Yunsheng, Su Fei, and the others. There's a problem with the tea. Someone has come to greet us. Feng, Yunsheng, and Su Fei placed their teacups on the table, not yet in a hurry to touch them. However, Ahu and Yinglong Tu had already raised their teacups. Receiving Yan Zhaoge's sound transmission, Yinglong Tu was slightly taken aback as he stood blankly where he was. Seeing his strange expression, the maidservant serving tea by the side all looked over curiously. Yan Zhaoge smiled as he received the teacup from Yinglong Tu. "What, is it too hot?" Han Long blinked, nodding dazedly. Ahu behaved normally, just that after touching the teacup to his lips, he pursed his lips tightly, not letting the tea enter his mouth, as he asked quietly, "Young master, there's a problem with the tea?" The tip of Yan Zhaoge's tongue lightly touched the tea, smiling as he sent over via sound transmission. "While they have indeed come to greet us, it's just throwing flirtatious glances at the blind. It's fine even if we drink this tea." Hearing his words, Feng Yinsheng and Su Fei both smiled, raising their teacups and lightly sipping their tea. Yan Zhaoge put down his teacup, smiling warmly at the maidservant standing by the side. "Please help us prepare food." The maidservant acknowledged respectfully, removing the teacups for them before leaving the room. Ahu looked at Yan Zhaoge. "Young master, what is it?" "Me, Brother Fei, and Miss Feng have all checked it, and we really didn't find anything abnormal." Feng Yinsheng and Su Fei both gazed over as well, Yan Zhaoge smiling because it wasn't prepared for us in the first place. "Oh, it should be said that it was prepared for us. If we are demonic bloodline cultivators like them, or demonic beasts." Hearing his words, thoughtful looks appeared on the faces of Ahu and the others. Because only Yan Zhaoge alone grasped the common language of the floating life world, the others were still learning it with great difficulty. Yan Zhaoge's explanation when interacting with Gao Fong and the others was that they were people of the wilderness, their ancestors having already lived in seclusion thousands of years ago. While Gao Fong and the others might not believe it, they had temporarily not thought that Yan Zhaoge and the others were not of the floating life world at all. Habitually, they still thought that Yan Zhaoge and the others were demonic bloodline cultivators like them. The combination of spinning top fragrance and grain essence grass has a very strong paralyzing effect on demonic beasts. It can weaken the spiritual power of demonic beasts, causing them to be in a weak state for a long time, unable to increase their strength. Yan Zhaoge shrugged. It was originally used to capture beasts, but if I am not wrong, it should also be effective against demonic bloodline cultivators. But for us, it's like putting spices in our tea. Feng Yinsheng frowned. Using this means that they haven't seen through our origins. Shui Fei said quietly, biting the hand that feeds you. Drugging him should be the first step. Yan Zhaoge spread his hands apart, smiling. Beside him, Ahu stood up, smiling savagely as he exercised his wrists and neck. "Have they all had tea?" Gao Fong stared at the maids in front of him like a hawk. The maidservants replied with some trepidation. Other than that young man, the other 3 men and 1 woman all drank. Gao Fong nodded. "That's good. You can leave now." The maidservants hurriedly retreated. Gao Fong sang to a tall, slender man beside him, "Wait a moment. We can begin." The stronger the demonic beast or martial practitioner, the less effective the medicinal fragrance will be, because we cannot ascertain their true cultivation bases. We might not be able to use our full strength. If the other party's strength surpasses our expectations, I hope that Mr. can lend us a hand. That tall, slender man dressed like a scholar asked, "Are you sure that they have a Pishio?" After the great calamity, the Pishio went extinct, never having been discovered. Our understanding of them only stops at the records in ancient texts. No one has ever seen what they truly look like. Gao Fong answered confidently, "Relax, its characteristics are exactly the same as those in the ancient texts. This old man is sure that it is a pure-blooded Pishio." The tall, slender scholar nodded. "That's good. It will be sufficient to account to His Highness afterwards. Master, why are you doing this?" "They saved the lives of me and a few of my junior apprentice brothers." Chen Shua looked uncomprehendingly at Gao Fong from the side. Gao Fong stroked his white beard. "Foolish! How can you be sure that they do not have malicious intentions? That they are not intentionally borrowing the power of our clan to get close to His Highness, intending to harm him?" Chun Shua was taken aback for a moment. They can't even speak the official language properly. Who would find such assassins? Gao Fong said mildly, "How do you know that they are not pretending?" "You are so easily deceived. If something happens afterwards and they track you and our clan down, how will you get out?" Chun Shua's lips twitched. Gao Fong glanced at him. "Next time, be more vigilant." The tall, slender scholar glanced back at Gao Fong, smiling somewhat disdainfully as he thought, "Before your disciple, you still want to put on an act?" Gao Fong had wanted to make a move partly because he had his eye on the Pishio Pan Pan. To the people of the floating life world, a powerful, precious beast represented many things. Most importantly, however, it represented the possibility of a powerful bloodline. On the other hand, while Gao Fong had not been able to dig out any details of Yen Zhaoga's background from his conversation with Yen Zhaoga, he had felt Yen Zhaoga's intentions in getting close to the Furan royal family. According to Chen Shua's words, there was someone in Yen Zhaoga's group who could insta-kill a mixed blood snake from a distance. This caused a feeling of unease and danger to arise within Gao Fong's heart. There were too many people gathered around the Furan crown prince, already causing the Eagle Feather sect to feel extremely congested. How would the tall, slender scholar not feel the same? This was also the reason why he was willing to help. After drinking that cup of tea, even if they still have combat power left, it is not that we have to personally kill them. We just have to force them to break through their limits, becoming half-demons, the tall, slender scholar said. At that time, there will be plenty of people who will take care of them. Master, this disciple still feels that it is inappropriate. Chun Shua was silent for a moment before he said earnestly, Before he had finished speaking, Gao Fong waved his hands. Some martial practitioners came forward, lifting Chun Shua up and bringing him away. Swiveling his head to look, Gao Fong saw that tall, slender scholar staring nonchalantly at the residents of Yen Zhaoga's group, seemingly not paying any attention to the dispute between Gao Fong and Chen Shua beside him at all. "This old man will go first. Mister, please hold the line for this old man." Saying thus, Gao Fong strode forward. He strode like a dragon and a tiger, his back arched slightly, his momentum extremely ferocious, as he resembled a massive eagle swooping down from the sky. Looking at Gao Feng's back, the tall, slender scholar's gaze flickered, cultivating in the bloodline of the flying, brilliant eagle to such an outstanding degree is truly rare. Even I do not have the confidence of defeating this old man. There are many who have pledged allegiance to the crown prince, but those who are able to stand tall and stand firm in this Kangha city are few and far between. The eagle feather sect's current foundation is indeed not due to luck. Looking at Gao Feng's figure entering the courtyard, he thought, perhaps there is no need for me to act. Chapter 427. After Gao Feng entered, there was not the slightest movement from inside. The tall and skinny middle-aged scholar was the first to feel relieved. It looks like it didn't take much effort. The cultivation of that group of people was lower than expected. They were all knocked out by the medicine. However, the tall and skinny scholar was soon puzzled. But if his cultivation wasn't high, how could he have killed the mixed-blood snake in one strike? He patiently gazed at the house that Yan Zhaoge and the others were residing in. But as time passed, there was still no movement from inside. Gao Feng and the other eagle feather sect martial artists did not come out either. The tall and thin scholar vaguely felt that something was wrong. There were no fluctuations of bloodline power. Not to mention the foreigners, even Gao Feng and the others didn't seem to have made a move. Although semi-demon martial artists were hated by everyone, when faced with the threat of death, there would always be people who would choose to half-awaken their bloodline and become semi-demon martial artists in order to obtain the power to turn defeat into victory or to survive when facing the threat of death. Based on the middle-aged scholar's understanding of Gao Feng, this old man's persistence in this aspect was not as stubborn as he usually appeared. However, let alone Yan Zhaoge and the others, the middle-aged scholar had not felt any signs of Gao Feng awakening his bloodline and transforming into a semi-demonized martial practitioner. Could it be that the other party is too powerful and killed Gao Feng in an instant, preventing him from even awakening his bloodline? The middle-aged scholar was startled by his own thoughts. I don't think so. Gao Feng is a well-known figure in Kangha City. Otherwise, how could he have a place in front of His Highness the Crown Prince? To be able to capture and kill him in an instant, how strong must the other party be? Could it be that they didn't even make a move? The middle-aged scholar's eyes narrowed into slits. Did the other party take out something valuable that moved Gao Feng, causing the two sides to reconcile and conspire? He became alert. If it was said that it was too crowded in front of His Highness the Crown Prince, then he and the Eagle Feather sect were both people who occupied space. If he got rid of him, he would be able to make room. Thinking of this, the middle-aged scholar became even more vigilant. Regardless of the possibility, he had already made up his mind not to enter the door. However, knowing oneself and knowing the enemy, he had to know the truth of the matter. Only then could he plan his next move. It might be difficult for others, but not for me. The bloodline power I cultivate is the shadow snake. The middle-aged scholar sneered. His body did not move, but the power of his bloodline was activated. Runes of light lit up beneath his clothes. The formless shadow force turned into a line and probed the residence in front of him. It was silent and untraceable. The middle-aged scholar's pupils turned dark yellow, transforming into the vertical pupils of a snake. The scene in front of him became dim and blurry, as if he had gone blind. But in the next moment, scenes appeared one after another, as if they were burning, and then gradually became clear. As the power of darkness continued to seep forward, a distant voice rang out in the scholar's ears. The shadow power continued forward, entered the house, and arrived at the main hall. Then, the middle-aged scholar saw a scene that left him dumbfounded. Within the great hall, Yan Zhaoge sat leisurely, unmoving. Feng, Yunsheng, Su Fei, and Yinglongtu were also seated. Who stood up and stood in the middle of the hall, carrying a person in his hand like an eagle catching a chick. That person was the Eagle Feather sect Master Gaofeng, who was usually old and shrewd like a hawk. However, at this moment, he had turned from a hawk to a chicken in someone's hand. Around, a group of Eagle Feather sect martial practitioners lay strewn about. This, while it was not the two sides plotting against him, the scene before him was instead even more shocking. The middle-aged scholar could only feel a chill surging up from the soles of his feet, shooting straight to the top of his head. Then he saw Yen Zhaoge looking over at him. The middle-aged scholar unconsciously wanted to stop his probing power of darkness, but before he could do so, he saw Yen Zhaoge's figure flicker, stomping over. Then the middle-aged scholar discovered that he was unable to retract his probing bloodline power, even feeling as if his entire person had been stomped on by Yen Zhaoge, as a result, unable to move. Who exactly are they? The middle-aged scholar was shocked. Yen Zhaoge's current expression was also rather strange as he lowered his head to look at the shadow beneath his feet that resembled a living being before swiveling his head to look at the dispirited and listless Gaofeng in Ahu's grasp. Why does it feel like something is wrong? Yen Zhaoge muttered. Feng Yunsheng looked at the shadow beneath Yen Zhaoge's feet. It shouldn't be a demonic beast like the dark shadow snake, but a demonic bloodline cultivator who has refined the dark shadow snake's bloodline. Yen Zhaoge smiled. Won't you know after you take a look? Saying thus, he made a grabbing motion within the air, instantly grabbing that shadow within his hand. As his true essence surged, this illusory shadow seemed to turn tangible. Then, like tugging on a rope, Yen Zhaoge tugged on this shadow. Outside the mansion, the middle-aged scholar was immediately dragged into the mansion involuntarily. He wanted to struggle, yet felt as light as a strand of straw, completely unable to resist the immense force emanating from within. He wanted to completely sever the connection between his body and the released power of darkness, yet was similarly unsuccessful. At this moment, he didn't even have the time to awaken his bloodline and become a semi-demonized martial practitioner before he was dragged away. The other Eagle Feather sect martial practitioners who were standing guard outside the manor watched in shock as the middle-aged scholar resembled a fish that had bitten the hook as it was pulled up by someone being dragged into the manor. While he had always been a loner, this middle-aged scholar had always been on equal footing with their chief. His reputation in this Kangha city, now, however, he was being dragged away like a dead fish. How could this not cause all the Eagle Feather sect martial practitioners here to stare wide-eyed and tongue-tied? They saw this middle-aged scholar being dragged along the ground, smashing through the walls of the manor before vanishing amidst the smoke and dust, dragged to the ground. The middle-aged scholar felt his body being dragged across the lawn of the garden, along the long corridor of steps before his head knocked against the doorsill of the great hall within the manor, breaking it apart as he was dragged straight into the great hall. Stroking his lower chin, Yen Zhaoge looked first at this middle-aged scholar, and then at Gaofeng before slowly asking, "The two of you in this Furan Kingdom's Kangha city, what exactly are your martial practitioners at?" The middle-aged scholar's face was ashen as he felt that even if he awakened his bloodline and became a semi-demonized martial practitioner, or even completely awakened into a demonic beast, he would still be powerless to stand against Yen Zhaoge. He could only make a final struggle. Chief Gao and I are both retainers of the Crown Prince. While you are powerful, wanting to rampage in Kangha City would only be courting your own destruction. Hearing his words, Yen Zhaoge could not help but laugh. You came to plot against me, and I stretched out my neck to be slaughtered. Wouldn't I die? The middle-aged scholar hurriedly said, "We do not have any intention of killing you. To tell you the truth, we just fancy your Pichio, wanting to wrest it away and offer it to the Crown Prince." In saving the Eagle Feather sect martial practitioners, You are also merely seeking a chance to come into contact with the Crown Prince. Offering up the Piccio is precisely the best way to advance. You are powerful. We will naturally make amends later, even introducing you to the Crown Prince. Looking at him, Yen Zhaoge asked, "The two of you can speak before the Furan Crown Prince." Thinking that Yen Zhaoge was moved, the middle-aged scholar immediately said, "Before the Crown Prince, Chief Gao and I are ranked among the 6 ministers most trusted." He paused for a moment before saying, "Still, with your strength, even the king would probably view you as an esteemed guest. Of course, the Crown Prince is a heaven's favored son who has hopes of entering the Blood Cloud clan." Yen Zhaoge waved his hands, interrupting him. "No need to go through so much trouble." The middle-aged scholar was taken aback. Returning to his seat neither hurriedly nor slowly, Yen Zhaoge suddenly broke into a smile. "Since the Furan Crown Prince values you so much with me keeping you here, he should take the initiative to ask about this matter, right? I'll wait for him here." To be continued. Chapter 428. The middle-aged scholar and Gao Fong were captured by who, one in each hand, resembling an eagle catching chicks. Sitting on a chair, Yen Zhaoge raised his head and gazed at the ceiling, his gaze unfocused, as he instead felt like his mind was wandering beyond the heavens. Suddenly, his expression changed slightly. "Oh, a lot of people?" Within Yen Zhaoge's senses, a large number of martial practitioners were currently surrounding the house he was in, their imposing aura also emanating a sense of orderly solemnity. Yen Zhaoge could not help but laugh, shaking his head. "Great army? Are they taking us as demonic beasts to surround and capture?" Feng Yunsheng, Su Fei, and the others exchanged looks. They had already known earlier that in this floating life world, in order to deal with semi-demonized practitioners, in order to actively hunt powerful demonic beasts to obtain the power of their bloodline, demonic bloodline cultivators would often form formations together. It was not just the Furan kingdom. Even large sects like the Blood Cloud clan would specially train in grand formations, forming them to face enemies together when the need arose. Su Fei said slowly, "While our 8 extremities world also has formations, most of them are established based on geographical advantage, rarely forming battle formations with many people." Yen Zhaoge said, "This is a difference brought about by different cultivation methods. The people forming battle formations here mostly cultivate in the same or similar type of demonic beast bloodline. This way, their power can be linked together, guided by the battle formation. It is not suitable for our side. There were some battle formations before the Great Calamity, but they all had their own unique requirements, not being so easily realized. Wanting to obtain power that surpasses the ordinary, there will always be some price to pay, some restrictions." Yen Zhaoge smacked his lips, not knowing whether to laugh or to cry. This brother does know some pretty good battle formations, but the problem is that they are all too high-end. Who asked from the side? "Young master, is the other side intending to win by numbers?" Gathering chicken feathers to gather courage, wanting to gang up on them. Yen Zhaoge shrugged, swiveling his head to look at the two. "It looks like in the eyes of your crown prince, you are also not very important, The face of the chief of the Eagle Feather sect, Gao Fong, was ashen, while feeling the aura of the great army outside that could topple mountains and overturn seas. That middle-aged scholar's expression could not help but turn a little ugly. "It is not the crown prince who has come. It is the grand commander of the Crimson Halberd Corps who has come. This person has always acted on his own, his temper stinky and hard. He must have thought that your actions of detaining us in Kangha City are equivalent to provoking our Furan kingdom, and thus acted." Yen Zhaoge asked rather interestedly, "How is it that he can freely mobilize his army, not having to consult your king and crown prince?" The middle-aged scholar and Gao Fong felt a little awkward. The king is currently in seclusion and has great trust in this person. Yen Zhaoge pulled back the corners of his mouth. He was loyal to the king, but he didn't like the crown prince. Such a person, Yan Zhaoge laughed. That is to say, this person also won't care about your lives? The smiles on Gao Feng and the middle-aged scholar's faces were somewhat forced. The middle-aged scholar barely managed to raise his spirits. Thus, there's no use for you to detain us. Why don't you release us? We'll help you deal with the Grand Commander of the Crimson Halberd Corps. The great commander of the Crimson Halberd Corps is loyal and devoted to the monarch. It's just that he doesn't have a grain of sand in his eyes. We can completely turn a big problem into a small one and a small one into nothing. Your strength is outstanding, and the Grand Commander of the Crimson Halberd Corps would definitely not want to make such a powerful enemy for the Furan Kingdom. Having a great battle in Kangha City would be even more unseemly, looking at the two of them. Yan Zhaoge seemed like he was smiling whilst also not, asking, could it be that just after I let you out, you would instead pour oil on the fire in front of that Grand Commander of the Crimson Halberd Corps, urging his army to immediately attack? As you say, this Grand Commander and the Crown Prince behind you are not on good terms. Anyway, whether or not he can kill me is another matter altogether. If I kill him, to the Furan Crown Prince, it seems to be something that he would be happy to see happen. Gao Feng and that middle-aged scholar both hurriedly said, definitely not, definitely not. From outside emanated a killing intent that had virtually condensed into tangible form. Cold sweat began dripping down the foreheads of the two. Yan Zhaoge smiled, waving his hands. Relax a little. I'm just curious as to where your crown prince is at this time. From what you say, your positions in front of him are still rather important. Exchanging glances with that middle-aged scholar, Gao Feng hesitated for a moment before saying, His Highness might be receiving envoys of the Blood Cloud clan, receiving the news a little later. It would not be good to neglect our esteemed guests. Yan Zhaoge nodded. That Grand Commander of the Crimson Halberd Corps daring to make a move, not fearing that he would not be able to eat us up, is actually also because someone from the Blood Cloud clan has come, right? Gao Feng and the middle-aged scholar nodded. However, they could not be optimistic. After all, having already fallen into Yan Zhaoge's hands, they could be killed at any time. Even if an expert of the Blood Cloud clan could avenge them, who would be willing to lose their lives? Yan Zhaoge asked interestedly, I've heard of the 3 demons and 4 clans before, but how much stronger is the Blood Cloud clan compared to you? For that Grand Commander of the Crimson Halberd Corps to be so confident? Gao Feng and that middle-aged scholar both looked rather strangely at Yan Zhaoge. Yan Zhaoge smiled mildly. When my ancestor reigned over the floating life world, the 3 demons and 4 clans had yet to exist. It's just that the past is like passing clouds and smoke. It's fine not to mention it. I am someone who places more importance on the present and the future. Gao Feng sighed. If it is said that the king is enraged, being able to destroy my Eagle Feather sect in a single day, then if the Blood Cloud clan wants to make a move against the Furan kingdom, it should be the same situation, perhaps even more important. The middle-aged scholar said, including the Furan kingdom, there are a total of 36 kingdoms in the surroundings, all of which are governed by the Blood Cloud clan. This time, the Blood Cloud clan holding a great meeting in the Furan kingdom to recruit disciples is actually only for the 6 kingdoms, including the Furan kingdom. Such a great meeting is still being held in 5 other places, facing the other 30 kingdoms. There are 9 grades of demonic beasts. The upper 3 grades of demonic beast bloodlines are only possessed by the Blood Cloud clan and the other 3 clans. The middle 3 grades of demonic beast bloodlines are already extremely precious to the Furan kingdom, comparable to national treasures. However, in the Blood Cloud clan, they are merely ordinary. Yan Zhaoge listened intently. Hearing this, he suddenly asked, What grade is the 6-legged flying lightning leopard here? Gao Feng answered, The third grade of the upper three grades. Yen Zhaoge asked seemingly unintentionally, are there any famed martial practitioners who cultivate in the bloodline of the six-legged flying lightning leopard? The two exchanged glances. The bloodline of the six-legged flying lightning leopard only exists in the Blood Cloud clan. There are two rather famous experts, one being the longtime elder of the clan, the Leopard King Lingang, and the other being his disciple, the Little Leopard King, He Taichung. The middle-aged scholar looked at Yen Zhaoge rather disbelievingly. You shouldn't have come into conflict with Lingang and He Taichung before, right? He Taichung is already a famed expert many years ago. Even if you can defeat him, if you provoke his master Lingang, you definitely won't be able to bear the consequences, let alone the entire Blood Cloud clan standing behind them. Yen Zhaoge smiled, looking thoughtful. As they conversed, the battle formation of the Crimson Halberd Corps outside had already been completely formed. While they didn't charge in, the demonic power that resembled the tides of the sea caused the house to collapse inwards from the outside. To be continued. Chapter 429. Feeling the power fluctuations emanating from outside, Yen Zhaoge blinked as Gao Fong and that middle-aged scholar looked at Yen Zhaoge's group now. It was like they were looking at a bunch of dead people and lunatics. While Yen Zhaoge had not mentioned it, they could vaguely guess that Yen Zhaoge's group had very likely already offended the Blood Cloud clan. They suddenly felt extremely vexed. If they had long known of this situation, why would they have still been worrying about how to get rid of Yen Zhaoge's group? They would have only needed to report Yen Zhaoge's movements to the Blood Cloud clan, and there would have been nothing to worry about. Whether it was the Furan Kingdom or the surrounding territories, they were all under the influence of the Blood Cloud clan. Offending the Blood Cloud clan here, how could they possibly have a good ending? Gao Fong and the middle-aged scholar felt delighted, as though they could already see the demise of Yen Zhaoge's group. However, amidst their delight, the two also felt extremely bitter, having fallen into Yen Zhaoge's hands. Even if Yen Zhaoge was killed by the Blood Cloud clan, they would still have to accompany him in death. Why had they come to this? The middle-aged scholar swiveled his head to glance at Gao Fong, his gaze filled with resentment. You old ghost, making a move without properly investigating the other party's background, dragging me down with you as well. Yen Zhaoge's expression remained relaxed and calm as he grabbed Pan Pan by the neck and brought him before him. You've taken a liking to this fella. What grade is it? Gao Fong said listlessly. The Pishio is only mentioned in the legends of pre-great calamity times. This is still the first time we have seen one. Therefore, it is still hard to say what grade it is, having to analyze it for some time before we can be certain. However, according to the legends of pre-great calamity times, it is at least the upper three grades. Yen Zhaoge smiled. The highest first grade, what are there? The middle-aged scholar answered. The highest first grade, not counting those that have appeared in history, but only those that currently exist, there are a total of 5. A mixed-blood swanee, a blue bird, that is, a mixed-blood descendant of the blue swan, a pure-blooded golden ape, a green scaly dragon, and a fire crow. Yen Zhaoge blinked. Are there any true dragons or cheilants or golden crows? The middle-aged scholar answered. There is no such thing. They are all legends of pre-great calamity times. Yen Zhaoge laughed, throwing Pan Pan back to Feng Yunsheng as he said in the language of the Eight Extremities world, this lazy fella's bloodline, amongst the bloodlines that martial practitioners of the floating life world are able to come into contact with, can already be considered a top-grade existence. However, although most of them are of mixed blood, there are more mutated beasts here than in our world. No wonder they can't walk the normal path of martial arts, so they have to cultivate the bloodline of demonic beasts. As they spoke, the courtyard outside had completely collapsed and was razed to the ground. Dust flew everywhere. Only the hall that everyone was in seemed to be protected by an invisible force and remained motionless. The demonic energy outside fluctuated a little. A cold voice rang out. "Ignorant fool, quickly come out and surrender. Don't make a mistake." Yen Zhaoge swiveled his head to look at the two, smiling. "This is the Grand Commander of the Crimson Halberd Corps." The two nodded. "That's right, the Grand Commander of the Crimson Halberd Corps, Liang Han. He is one of the top 5 experts of Kangha City, cultivating in the 4th grade bloodline, the bloodline of the Crimson-Eyed Golden Eagle. The Crimson Halberd Corps, under his command, mostly cultivate in the bloodline of the Crimson-Eyed Golden Eagle, being able to form the Crimson-Feathered Great Halberd Battle Formation." Yen Zhaoge nodded slightly, saying mildly, "Commander Liang, is it? What I mean is that you should invite that monarch of yours, who is in seclusion, to leave seclusion. You cannot take responsibility for the current situation." His voice wasn't loud, but it was clear enough for everyone to hear. Outside the hall, the courtyard had been reduced to rubble. After the dust had settled, a tall, middle-aged man appeared, garbed in red armor and with a stern expression on his face. Hearing Yen Zhaoge's words, this man said coldly, "Since you are so thick-headed, kill without question." Saying thus, he raised a hand, wanting to make a downwards chopping motion. Meanwhile, the numerous soldiers around him, garbed in black armor and wielding great crimson halberds, were all prepared to attack. However, that red-armored man's hand suddenly halted in midair, frowning slightly as he looked to the other side. There, a group of people did not retreat due to the might of the Crimson Halberd Corps like the others, instead standing there watching the show. The one at their head was a tall youth, garbed in luxurious clothes, yet not in the attire of someone from the Furan Kingdom. Seeing the red-armored man look over, this youth could not help but smile. "Please continue, Commander Liang. This solitude is very happy, being able to see such a good show in coming to Kangha City." The red-armored man, Liang Han, had already recognized the other party's identity. It was the crown prince of the neighboring Ziyu Kingdom. The Furan Kingdom and the Ziyu Kingdom had always been at odds with each other, often having waged war with each other. The youth before him was an old enemy of the Furan crown prince, the two having fought since young. They were also direct competitors in the Blood Cloud clan's disciple recruitment this time. While Liang Han was not on good terms with the Furan crown prince, towards the Ziyu crown prince before him, their relationship was even more so. "The people inside, are they from your Ziyu kingdom?" Liang Han asked coldly. The Ziyu crown prince chuckled. "No, but this solitude admires them very much now." Before Liang Han could speak, a voice resounded from afar. "They will be dead very soon." The Ziyu crown prince snorted lightly before the crowd parted, a group of people led by a sinister-looking youth arriving before them. Liang Han paused for a moment before bowing. "Elder Rong, crown prince." This sinister-looking youth was the Furan crown prince. Beside him was an old man who looked old, but whether it was the Furan crown prince or Liang Han, they were both extremely respectful towards him. He was the elder of the Blood Cloud clan, who had come to preside over the great meet this time. The Ziyu crown prince smiled as he bowed. "Elder Rong." Elder Rong nodded mildly before looking in the direction of the great hall where Yen Zhaoge and the others were, asking the Furan crown prince, "Your subordinates have reported that the other party is able to freeze illusory demonic power, transforming it into a tangible rope and dragging people in." The Furan crown prince answered, "Yes." Elder Rong raised his voice towards the great hall. "Are you of the Snow Crane sect?" This old man is Rong Ji of the Blood Cloud clan. Within the great hall, hearing the words Snow Crane sect, Yen Zhaoge's heart involuntarily jolted slightly. Beside him, Su Fei swiveled his head to look at him as well. After pondering for a moment, Yen Zhaoge smiled. No, it was silent outside. Looking at the two, Yen Zhaoge asked, "What is the background of the Snow Crane sect?" The two exchanged looks before Gao Feng answered, It is a rather strange clan, having been established just over 10 years ago. The people of the clan do not cultivate in the power of their bloodline, instead unceasingly cultivating in chi and tempering their body. That has long since been proven to be a dead end. However, that chief of the Snow Crane sect seems to have some unique areas in the Tao of Qi cultivation, possessing a very high cultivation base. Sadly, the disciples of the clan are all far too lacking. Thus, the clan has not been able to develop. However, the daughter of this Snow Crane sect's chief has tied the knot with the son of the chief of Green Dragon Mountain of the Four Great Sects. With the two families becoming in-laws, there is no one who would offend the Snow Crane sect. Hearing the situation of the Snow Crane sect, Yen Zhaoga's eyes lit up slightly. Oh. Chapter 430. Looking at Gao Fong, Yen Zhaoga asked, "It has only been over 10 years since their founding. That is to say, this current chief of the Snow Crane sect is also their founding chief. How much do you know about this person? Is there a portrait of her?" Gao Fong shook his head. "There are portraits, but we definitely don't have one on hand now. We only know that she is a woman, her husband a demonic bloodline cultivator, but not as powerful as the chief of the Snow Crane sect." The middle-aged scholar on the other side said, "I heard that she was the maidservant of some expert that year, and can also be considered half a disciple. That expert is elusive, having already not appeared in this world for many years. I heard that this chief of the Snow Crane sect only followed him for a short period of time, but established her current foundation. The chief of the Snow Crane sect does not hide this past, instead feeling proud of it. The more she is like this, the more curious everyone is about that expert. However, there is very little news about him." Yen Zhaoga narrowed his eyes. "This expert, was he a man or a woman?" "It is rumored that he was also a woman." Yen Zhaoga asked, "What exactly was his cultivation base like?" Gao Fong and the middle-aged scholar opened their mouths, but paused before they both said rather awkwardly, "Actually, we don't really know much about him, just guessing based on the current chief's cultivation base." Yen Zhaoga asked again, "How long has it been since she last appeared?" "About 30 years. Gao Fong thought for a moment before answering. Yen Zhaoga continued asking, "Never appeared again?" The middle-aged scholar answered, "At the very least, we have never heard of him again." Yen Zhaoga was silent for a moment before he smiled slightly. "One last question. How is the relationship between the Blood Cloud clan and Green Dragon Mountain with the Snow Crane sect?" The faces of Gao Fong and the middle-aged scholar both stiffened. Before they could answer, intense fluctuations of demonic power emanated from outside. The Crimson Feather Great Halberd battle formation of the Crimson Halberd Corps was instantly unleashed to the maximum, at the same time also surging with demonic power even stronger than this. Looking at the two, Yen Zhaoga could not help but laugh. "All right, you don't have to answer. I already know the answer." While Yen Zhaoga had already denied that he was of the Snow Crane sect, Rong Ji clearly still believed that he was related to it. Yen Zhaoga felt that from a certain perspective, the other party's guess was actually not completely wrong. He turned to look at Xue Fei and the others and said, "We found some unexpected clues, but it has also brought us some trouble." Before he finished speaking, the violent demonic energy had already bombarded the roof of the hall. A gigantic red-eyed golden condor flapped its wings and soared into the sky. Its feathers, which were made of light, turned crimson. It clawed at the roof of the hall with its claws, as if it was going to tear the entire hall apart. The Crown Prince of Xiu stood with his hands behind his back. His expression did not change as he watched the scene unfold before him. However, his gaze had already turned rather solemn at this moment. The reputation of the Furan Kingdom's Crimson Halberd Corps is well-deserved. Manifesting the silhouette of demonic beasts is a characteristic of half-demons. However, These soldiers of the Crimson Halberd Legion haven't awakened their bloodline yet. They're relying on the special power of the battle formation to manifest the silhouette of the crimson-eyed golden condor. The crown prince of Ziyu felt solemn within his heart. With a grand commander like Liang Han as their commander, their strength is already no longer just a matter of accumulating numbers. Instead, it is an increase in their intrinsic quality. Looking at the hall beneath the claws of the golden condor, he thought, you can also be considered to have died a worthy death. At least, this solitude can witness the true strength of the Furan Kingdom's crimson halberd corps. Just as he thought of this, he abruptly stared wide-eyed as he saw a black storm suddenly arise around that lonely hall, enveloping it, isolated by the black hurricane. The massive condor was completely unable to approach at all. Beneath its claws, they were unceasingly sliced apart by the black hurricane, riddled with wounds as they were on the verge of breaking apart. The crown prince of Ziyu could not help but be dazed. Liang Han's eyes looked on the verge of imploding. The Furan crown prince's face darkened. Even the elder of the Blood Cloud clan, Rong Shi, frowned at this. Within the hall, Ahu asked, "Young master, is there still a need for us to remain in the Furan kingdom?" Yen Zhaoge said, "It most likely won't be of much use. Our time is rather limited. Let's first leave this place." "All right, young master. Sit well." Ahu grinned, the immortal crane wings on his back expanding, numerous streaks of light expanding outwards. The aura-chi of his entire body surged together, the terrifying black hurricane surrounding the entire house before uprooting it entirely. Within the hurricane, the silhouettes of immortal cranes appeared, flapping their wings as they flew high into the air, stirring the hurricane as they directly flew off into the distance. Within the room, Yen Zhaoge pointed at Ahu, smiling, "You idiot, you're really too showy. Flying like this, your speed is slow and also a waste of strength." Outside the room, everyone was rendered wide-eyed and tongue-tied. Elder Rong frowning tightly. Could it be that this old man saw wrongly that they are actually semi-demonized martial practitioners? But I can't feel any fluctuations of demonic power. Thinking about this, he did not slow down as he struck out with his palm. As he struck out with his palm, patterns of light flickered on Elder Rong's entire body, the light instantly condensing to form a massive tiger claw, clawing towards the black hurricane in midair. Liang Han's face was livid, his gaze filled with fury as he drew upon the power of the crimson feather great halberd battle formation. The massive condor spreading its wings, shooting straight into the clouds. Within the black hurricane, another dense aura-chi suddenly surged. The aura-chi condensed to form a massive palm, clashing with Elder Rong's tiger claw in midair. As soon as they clashed, Elder Rong felt as though a great mountain was pressing down on him. As the power of his demonic blood clashed with it, he felt as though he was unable to bear the heavy burden. That power was massive and heavy to the extreme, boundlessly heavy as the great earth, as towering as a great mountain, seemingly unshakable. In virtually just an instant, the tiger claw formed of patterns of light was directly smashed apart by that massive palm. Elder Rong was shocked by this. Luckily, that palm did not pursue him. After smashing apart the tiger claw, it struck towards the incoming massive condor from the other side. A great boom resounded as countless crimson feathers shattered, transforming into an all-encompassing rain of light that scattered all over the ground. The massive condor emitted a mournful, enraged howl as it struggled unceasingly. The figures of Liang Han and the Crimson Halberd Corps soldiers beside him all swayed for a moment, blood spurting out of their mouths. They forcibly persevered, the massive condor flapping its wings as it fought to the death, not retreating as it lunged towards the black hurricane once more. In the end, that massive palm slammed down once more, splitting mountains and breaking rivers, as it completely sent the massive condor plummeting back to the ground. Liang Han and the others were no longer able to persevere now as they spat out another mouthful of blood. Other than the Grand Commander Liang Han, who had the highest cultivation base, the others all collapsed onto the ground. Unconscious, Liang Han was also no longer able to hold on as he knelt down on one knee. Within the hall, Xue Fei retracted his great heaven-earth palm. Sitting down once more, Gao Feng and the other two looked dazedly at Ah Hu and Xue Fei. Yan Zhaoge stroked his lower chin, a pondering look appearing on his face. On this day, the people of Kangha City all witnessed a bizarre scene. A black wind swept along a house, sending it flying out of the city. Now, from the distant Furan Kingdom's royal palace, powerful fluctuations emanated. "Who is causing trouble in my Furan Kingdom?" An authoritative voice resounded before numerous patterns of light instantly enveloped the entire city with the royal palace as their center. Then, a massive silhouette appeared in the sky above Kangha City, virtually enveloping half of the sky. A three-headed horse galloped madly towards Yan Zhaoge and the others. To be continued. Chapter 4:31. The three-headed horse galloped madly, trampling through the air as it shot towards Yan Zhaoge and the others. It was the king of the Furan Kingdom, who had been in secluded cultivation, breaking out of seclusion and making a move, also activating the formation of Kangha City. Seeing this scene, the Ziyu Kingdom's crown prince felt a chill within his heart. This is different from a battle formation, being a formation that makes use of the geography of the land. To think that the Furan Kingdom still had such a move hidden up their sleeves. If my Ziyu attacks the Furan Kingdom with its geography of the land, it will be hard for us to take down Kangha City. Coming here this time, it has really not been a wasted trip. As he was thinking this, he saw a dim saber light suddenly shoot out from within the house that was flying in midair. As the dim saber light landed on the neck of the horse, it instantly let out a mournful wail. The black hurricane that enveloped the house expanded, combining with the dim saber light, which was concealed within the storm, appearing and disappearing like a ghost. The black hurricane became even sharper, as though it was entirely formed of saber light. "You dare!" The king of the Furan Kingdom roared furiously, the three heads of that horse neighing together, blazing fire simultaneously spurting out of its mouths. The flames clashed with the black hurricane, transforming into a sea of flames that enveloped the horizon, wanting to trap the house within. Within the house, Ahu scratched the back of his head, swiveling his head to look at Yan Zhaoge. Young master, it looks like we still have to tear the house down." Yan Zhaoge glanced at him. "Weren't you pretty good at acting just now?" Ahu gave a simple and honest laugh. "Wasn't this thinking of learning from young master?" "Is that all I have?" Yan Zhaoge pinched the corner of his forehead, yet saw that other than Han Long, who had no reaction, Feng Yinsheng, Ahu and Su Fei were all looking at him earnestly before nodding in unison. Yan Zhaoge shook his head exasperatedly before saying, "Since it's already flying, what would it look like to tear the house down now?" Not moving from his seat, Yan Zhaoge lightly clapped his palms together, opening his shadow-shrinking pouch. A short stone rod flew out, instantly enlarging within the hall as it took on the original appearance of the pillar of the Divine Palace. The pillar of the Divine Palace controlled its size, becoming exactly the same height as the ceiling of the hall, before gradually merging with it, becoming its pillar. Uprooted by Ahu, its entire frame shook. The house, which had originally been on the brink of collapse due to whose Orochi instantly stabilized, emanating a concept of indestructibility. The entire house seemed to have become completely different at this moment. Just hit it directly. Yan Zhaoge raised his right hand, flicking his wrist as he pointed forward, his tone light and casual. "All right, young master." Ahu grinned widely and laughed happily. In the next moment, the black tornado, along with the middle-grade spirit artifact, the serene clear sunlight saber, and the house that everyone was in collided with the enormous three-headed horse. The incomparably huge three-headed steed shattered. With a loud bang, the black tornado shook violently, but the house in the storm was different. It flew steadily in the air, not swaying at all. Feng Yinsheng quietly sensed the energy fluctuations during the collision and judged the strength of the other party's formation. "It doesn't feel that outstanding," Yan Zhaoga said mildly. "The people of the floating life world should just play with battle formations. They are not proficient in setting up grand formations based on geography. Of course, this is the evaluation of us of the eight extremities world. If it was against others of the floating life world, choosing a general from a dwarf might be a great weapon." Seeing the image of the three-headed steed shatter, the Furan Crown Prince and the Grand Commander of the Crimson Halberd Corps, Liang Han, were both dazed. The hearts of Elder Rong and the Ziyu Crown Prince both sunk. Above the distant royal palace, the figure of a middle-aged man dressed in a dragon robe appeared, his gaze fixated on the black tornado. He snorted coldly, bringing his palms together before striking out towards the distant royal palace down below. Seeing this, Liang Han was instantly greatly shocked. "Your Majesty, you can't." The expression of the Furan Crown Prince changed as well. "Royal father?" The royal palace shook mightily, a loud, clear roar resounding. Then, amidst infinite radiance, a true three-headed steed galloped madly out. This three-headed steed was tens of feet tall, each of its heads resembling the size of a small house, a demonic light flickering within its massive pupils. As the steed galloped madly, roiling waves of fire surged about, the surrounding great earth quaking as its hooves moved. Three-headed blazing flames, howling wind beast. The Ziyu Crown Prince sucked in a breath of cold air, the Furan's guardian beast. "It's easy to let this thing out, but it will be hard to take it back. The Furan family is going all out this time. Aren't they afraid that half of Kangha City will be destroyed afterwards?" Seeing this, Elder Rong of the Blood Cloud clan flew up, chasing after Yan Zhaoga's group. That massive blazing flames, howling wind beast galloped away in rapid succession. The guardian grand formation of Kangha City shone with radiance, numerous patterns of light filling the entire city. The silhouette of the three-headed steed appeared once more, gradually merging with the true blazing flames howling wind beast. Bolstered by the power of the grand formation, the blazing flames howling wind beast howled madly, its speed rising yet another level. As the patterns of light flickered, an effect similar to shifting space was virtually manifested, causing the blazing flames howling wind beast to very quickly arrive in the vicinity of the black tornado. The blazing flames howling wind beast galloped madly like a tornado, coming to a sudden halt as it stood where it was, directly standing on its hind legs. It raised its two front hooves high before stomping down towards Yan Zhaoga and the others with the pressure of Mount Tai. Within the room, Yan Zhaoga laughed lightly, pulling out Pan Pan from Feng Yunxing's bosom. Pan Pan blinked, a dazed look on his face. Yan Zhaoga smiled. "Always a lazy glutton, haven't you discovered that you've become much fatter recently? Exercise me a bit after your meal." Saying thus, he directly threw Pan Pan out of the room. Seeing this, Gao Fang and that middle-aged scholar were both dazed. Even if this Pichot's appearance is extraordinary, it is still only an infant. How can it stand against a fourth-grade demonic beast, the blazing flames, howling wind beast, that has already reached its peak? Isn't this just courting death? However, next, their eyes nearly popped out of their sockets. Flying out of the room, Pan Pan, who was small as a speck of dust in comparison to the blazing flames howling wind beast, felt the light before his eyes abruptly dim, a massive shadow obscuring the heavens and concealing the sun. Raising his head, he saw the two front hooves of the blazing flames howling wind beast pressuring down like a mountain. Pan, who had still had an adorable look on his face earlier, abruptly let out a frenzied roar, his voice instantly drowning out the neighing of the horse. Pan's figure expanded madly like a balloon, returning from its shrunken state to its normal size before expanding further. In an instant, Pan stood on his hind legs, his height also reaching several tens of feet. While he was slightly smaller than the blazing flames howling wind beast, his majestic strength was greater. Under the dumbfounded gazes of the king of the Furan kingdom and the others, Pan's two front claws, with the momentum of a heavenly king holding up a pagoda, forcibly blocked the two descending front hooves of the blazing flames howling wind beast. The figures of the two massive beasts halted simultaneously, Pan's two hind claws instantly stomping deeply into the ground. However, the next instant, Pan raised his two forearms, easily flipping the blazing flames howling wind beast, whose front hooves were suspended in the air onto the ground. At this moment, Pan was even more tyrannical and brutal than the most violent of ferocious beasts. Roaring, he strode forward, his massive claws waving as he directly sent one of the heads of the three-headed blazing flames howling wind beast flying. To be continued. Chapter 432. The blazing flames howling wind beast was flipped over by Pan. Just as it was struggling to get up, Pan rushed over and slammed it into the ground with a palm. Of the three massive heads, one of them had its neck directly broken by Pan's palm strike, its head flying outwards and smashing heavily onto the ground. In the distant imperial palace, the face of the king of the Furan kingdom was sunken. When the blazing flames howling wind beast had been flipped onto the ground by Pan, the Furan crown prince, the grand commander of the Crimson Halberd Corps, Liang Han, and the others looked as if they had lost their parents, while the king of the Furan kingdom had instead been extraordinarily calm. There was even a hint of excitement in his eyes. The hands of the king of the Furan kingdom stretched out horizontally, also letting out a low roar. The light patterns of the grand formation that enveloped Kangha City rippled like water, enveloping the severed head and injured body of the blazing flames howling wind beast. However, with a roar, Pan sent one of the blazing flames howling wind beast's heads flying with a single palm strike. The numerous patterns of light circulating on the grand formation were continuously shattered by Pan's claws. Seeing this scene, the expression of the king of the Furan kingdom changed slightly as he flew away from the skies above the imperial palace, hurrying over to where Pan and the blazing flames howling wind beast were. At this moment, Pan was standing on the ground, raising one of his hind claws and stomping heavily on the body of the blazing flames howling wind beast, which only had two heads left. The blazing flames howling wind beast instantly let out a long howl filled with pain as it was stepped on by Pan, unable to move. The massive silhouette of a three-headed steed appeared once more, enveloping the entire body of the king of the Furan kingdom. Its hooves were like the wind, virtually not touching the ground as it charged over madly. Within the black hurricane, seeing this, Yen Zhaoge shrugged. Although I don't know what exactly you want to do, I don't know, but we have no obligation to cooperate with you. Pan roared as streams of black water surged forth, transforming into an impenetrable wall that stood before the king of the Furan kingdom. The huge, three-headed horse crashed into the black water wall and let out a mournful cry. Streams of light shattered, but it was unable to break through the water wall. At the same time, Pan exerted force beneath his feet, once more, stomping down with a violent force as the great earth shattered unceasingly in all directions. The flaming, howling wind beast's ribs were broken, and its two remaining heads were bleeding profusely. The flames surrounding its body were on the verge of extinguishing. Ahu said, "Let's go." The black hurricane swept Pan Pan up once more. Pan Pan blinked, his massive body shrinking once more, quickly disappearing within the black hurricane. The face of the king of the Furan kingdom was livid, but he no longer had the heart to continue chasing. He hurriedly landed beside the dying, blazing flames, howling wind beast, attempting to save it with all his might. Elder Rong also stopped in his tracks, helplessly. He stared in the direction where the black tornado had disappeared, unable to speak for a long time. The Furan Crown Prince and the Grand Commander of the Crimson Halberd Corps, Liang Han, both had ugly looks on their faces. Not only had the Crimson Halberd Army's formation been easily broken, even the king had been forced to come out of seclusion and personally activate the great formation that enveloped Kangha City. However, he had still been unable to stop the other party. They mobilized their guardian beast, the three-headed blazing wind beast, only to be beaten half to death by the other party's Pishio. They had suffered heavy losses, yet they hadn't even managed to keep a single strand of the enemy's hair. This caused the people of the Furan kingdom to feel despondent and resentful, as well as a sense of lingering fear. Looking at the feather-strewn state of Kangha City, the Ziyu kingdom's crown prince was naturally inwardly delighted. However, he also felt slightly apprehensive. The strength of the Furan kingdom has surpassed my predictions. If not for these outsiders of unknown origins, if my Ziyu really went into an all-out war with the Furan kingdom, we would probably still be at a disadvantage. Thinking of this, the Ziyu kingdom's crown prince also felt a little fear. Where exactly did these outsiders come from? Are they really related to the Snow Crane sect? The Snow Crane sect itself probably doesn't possess such great strength. Right. I have to swiftly report this back to Royal Father. While these outsiders have now offended the Blood Cloud clan, my Ziyu has to be careful as well. Before they have been exterminated by the Blood Cloud clan, my Ziyu must definitely not get into a conflict with them. Otherwise, the Furan kingdom will serve as an example. The Ziyu kingdom's crown prince unceasingly calculated within his heart, but as he looked at Elder Rong's seemingly much older back, his heart jolted once more. Can the Blood Cloud clan really exterminate those outsiders? After leaving Kangha City, gazing back, Yen Zhaoga saw that within Kangha City, streaks of blood-red light very quickly shot into the skies, forming numerous rings of light within the air, sending a message to the Blood Cloud clan's nearby reinforcements. Yen Zhaoga smiled nonchalantly. Before him, Gao Fong and the middle-aged man were already shocked to the point of numbness. They now suddenly felt that their earlier worries had been completely delusional. Someone like Yen Zhaoga would want to pledge allegiance to the Furan Crown Prince. Want to pledge allegiance to the king of the Furan kingdom? What a joke! Thinking of how they had originally attempted to oppose such a figure, Gao Fong and the middle-aged man had the urge to smash their heads into the ground and die. Yen Zhaoga's expression was as per usual as he suddenly asked that Rong Ji just now, in the Blood Cloud clan, what level of strength does he possess? Gao Fong and the middle-aged man shuddered, exchanging glances before that middle-aged scholar answered carefully. The Blood Cloud clan has as many experts as there are clouds. We cannot be certain. After all, Elder Rong and the others are at a much higher level than us. However, we can be sure that there are still quite a few people with higher cultivation bases than Elder Rong. Yen Zhaoga smiled. Tell me about those you know. I believe that you wouldn't lie to me, right? Hearing his words, that middle-aged scholar and Gao Fong both smiled bitterly, nodding repeatedly. After a while of asking and answering questions, a rather strange expression surfaced on Yen Zhaoga's face as he muttered, "Something's really not right." After pondering for a moment, Yen Zhaoga retracted his thoughts, swiveling his head to look at Ahu, smiling. How does it feel to sweep along a house and fly? Ahu gave a simple and honest laugh. If it's for a long time, it is indeed a little tiring. Yen Zhaoge waved his hands. Tiring isn't the main point. The main point is that it's too slow. We're in a rush for time. Hearing his words, Ahu instantly exerted force beneath his feet, the entire house instantly breaking apart. He looked at Gao Fong and the middle-aged man, who were currently already trembling in fear. Young master, how do we deal with these two? Yen Zhaoge said, do as you see fit. Ahu nodded, grabbing Gao Fong and the middle-aged man with each hand, instantly leaving far away. After a period of time, he returned, reuniting with Yen Zhaoge and the others. That is to say, after this, we will be making a trip to that snow crane sect? Su Fei asked, hearing Yen Zhaoge's introduction. Feng Yunsheng, Su Fei, and the others all became interested in the snow crane sect. Yen Zhaoge said, that's right. Let's go take a look at the situation first. They had already learnt earlier that the snow crane sect and Green Dragon Mountain were located in the northwest of the Furan Kingdom. However, the distance was very far, having to cross the territory of several kingdoms. Yen Zhaoge and the others sped off, hurrying northwest at their greatest speed. Meanwhile, while the Blood Cloud clan had tried their best to conceal the news of what had happened in Kangha City earlier, it had still spread very quickly. As the Blood Cloud clan received the news, a great number of experts were dispatched, beginning to search for the whereabouts of Yen Zhaoge and the others. The floating life world, which had originally already been restless and uneasy, grew even more turbulent. To be continued. Chapter 433. The capital of the Furan Kingdom, Kangha City, had fallen into chaos. The Blood Cloud clan that dominated the southern border of the floating life world had been enraged. The Pishio Mountain that had only existed in legends after the Great Calamity had appeared. The various powers of the floating life world all paid attention to this news. The vast western region of the floating life world had always been the sphere of influence of Green Dragon Mountain. Meanwhile, the Snow Crane sect was located amidst the numerous mountains in the west, occupying the Jade Ridge, snowy mountains where it had been established. It had only been over 10 years since the sect had opened its doors, but it had already become a major sect that was renowned far and wide. Other than the daughter of their chief Jade Crane, Su Yun, who had married the son of the chief of Green Dragon Mountain, Su Yun herself possessed outstanding strength, also being admired by the nearby heroes, as she was not inferior to any man. Yen Zhaoge and the others headed northwest, heading straight for the Jade Ridge snowy mountains. The spiritual chi flow of this floating life world is not suitable for martial practitioners of our generation to absorb and refine. Normally speaking, while cultivating here is not necessarily useless, one would definitely have to expend multiple times the amount of time and effort. As they walked, Su Fei said, there is a limit to one's lifespan. If one cannot break through in time and increase their longevity, they may very well die of old age. Saying thus, he sighed, if not for a heaven-defying fortuitous encounter, this Chief Su would probably be known as a peerless genius. Hearing his words, Yen Zhaoge smiled. It is still unclear exactly what her cultivation base is. Su Fei said, it shouldn't be too low. Also, it has only been over 10 years since she rose to fame. Considering the difficulty of cultivating in this floating life world, it should already be very difficult, especially when, according to you, the others of the Snow Crane sect seem rather mediocre. In comparison, they are even more extraordinary. Feng Yunsheng, Ahu, and Yinglong Tu had also generally understood the situation now. Feng Yunsheng now said, compared to the difficulty of cultivating in here, the mediocrity of the others might be the norm. They all nodded. Yen Zhaoge pondered for a moment before saying, it has yet to be discovered in the Eight Extremities world after the Great Calamity. However, before the Great Calamity, there were once records of a strange physique that appeared, known as the living source body, also known as the living water of exhausted source or the bitter sea traversing body. Hearing this, Feng Yunsheng, Su Fei, and the others all grew interested as they swiveled their heads to look at Yan Zhaoge. Yan Zhaoge recalled as he said, "Under normal circumstances, there is nothing special about the living source physique, as it would be no different from an ordinary person. However, in the era of doom, where spiritual energy is extremely scarce and almost dry, it will be difficult for normal people to absorb and refine spiritual energy. But the warriors who boast the living source body can train as usual. It's like a dry field that has a source of fresh water. To put it simply, if there is such a person who possesses the living source physique, he might appear very ordinary in our current 8 extremities world. Of course, it's also possible that your aptitude is still outstanding, but that will depend on your innate aptitude in other aspects. It has nothing to do with the living source body. However, when this person came to this floating life world along with the others, while it would be difficult for others to even take a single step, having to put in hundreds of times more effort than cultivating in the 8 extremities world, this person who possesses the living source physique is able to do so as though it is flat ground, no different from cultivating in the 8 extremities world. When everyone heard this, they all clicked their tongues in wonder. The boundless universe is truly full of wonders and mysteries. Su Fei asked, "You suspect that Chief Su is of the living source physique?" Yan Zhaoge said, "This is merely one possibility. It is also possible that this Chief Su's aptitude is extremely outstanding, far surpassing our imaginations, or that she has had some heaven-defying fortuitous encounter." As they spoke, they advanced. After a long and arduous journey, the pure white snowy mountains had already appeared in the distance. Yan Zhaoge's gaze swept over. He saw that there were currently numerous figures scattered about the snowy mountains as though they were searching and guarding against something. Gazing carefully, they were all garbed in white clothes and draped in cloaks of crane feathers, seemingly having merged as one with the surrounding white snow. With Yan Zhaoge's eyesight, he was able to see that there was an image of a snow crane flashing its wings on their clothes. Seeing this, Yan Zhaoge instantly understood that these were all disciples of the Snow Crane sect. Roughly appraising them, Yan Zhaoge sighed inwardly. These Snow Crane sect martial practitioners were mostly of the body refinement realm. There were very few who had attained the martial scholar realm of qi refining. Su Fei and who also saw those martial practitioners who seemed to be one with the snowy ground. These people, could it be that they are searching for us? Su Fei knit his brows. The Blood Cloud clan's Rong, Ji revealed that we might be related to the Snow Crane sect in Kangha City. While most people might not know why he came to this conclusion, it would not be strange for the news to spread. Feng Yunsheng said, "What Senior Apprentice Brother Su means is that because the Snow Crane sect is unable to ascertain our background and intentions, they have also first taken precautions against us." Who scratched his head. But with just these body refinement martial practitioners, how can they guard against us? The difference in cultivation bases is too great. They wouldn't even be able to discover us even if we walked past them. While we didn't exert much strength over at the Furan Kingdom, we should also know that a defensive line formed by body refinement martial practitioners would be completely useless. Yan Zhaoge pondered for a moment before smiling, throwing a stone to test the waters. The other side indeed doesn't understand us, and also doesn't hope for these body refinement martial practitioners to discover us. What they are hoping for is that we can discover these Snow Crane sect martial practitioners. Feng Yunsheng murmured. If we had come for the Snow Crane sect, we would naturally have taken the initiative to contact them, introducing them to Chief Su Yun through these Snow Crane sect disciples. Su Fei nodded. Whether we have good intentions or bad intentions, we would still inevitably have to interact with those of the Snow Crane sect. Yan Zhaoge smiled. It is precisely so. Let's go down." Exchanging glances, they smiled as they descended from midair, landing on the snowy mountain. Yen Zhaoge and the others did not conceal their tracks, not concealing their auras as they strolled amidst the snowy lands as though they were climbing a mountain for a stroll. Very quickly, some Snow Crane sect martial practitioners discovered them. "This Jade Ridge, snowy mountains, are under the jurisdiction of my Snow Crane sect. Fellow Taoists, please report your names." Hearing the other party's question, Yen Zhaoge smiled mildly. "Please inform Chief Su of your sect. You only need to say that an old friend has come to visit." After a slight pause, Yen Zhaoge added, "An old friend from 30 years ago." The Snow Crane sect disciples exchanged looks, an old man walking out from the crowd, saying, "Guests, please wait a moment." Saying thus, he swiveled his head to the side. The Snow Crane sect martial practitioner beside him nodded, turning and leaving. Seeing this, Su Fei said, "It looks like that Chief Su is in the vicinity." Yen Zhaoge nodded, "Heading in the direction of the Furan Kingdom, waiting for us in this area where we have just arrived at the snowy mountain." Feng Yunsheng asked, "Green Dragon Mountain should have received the news very soon, right? It shouldn't be too late. After all, strictly speaking, the Jade Ridge, snowy mountains are also within the sphere of influence of Green Dragon Mountain. The Snow Crane sect is a vassal of Green Dragon Mountain." Yen Zhaoge gazed at those Snow Crane sect martial practitioners. "Still, I am rather interested in another matter now. There are actually grand spirit stones here, and their quality is not bad at all. Their production also seems to not be low." Yen Zhaoge's eyes lit up. To be continued. Chapter 434. Yen Zhaoge's gaze fell on the jade pendants hanging from the waists of the Snow Crane sect martial practitioners. The jade pendants seemed to be made of white jade. The workmanship was exquisite and unique, and it was lifelike. What caught Yen Zhaoge's attention was that every Snow Crane sect martial practitioner had one, seemingly a symbol of their identity. Carefully feeling the spiritual chi fluctuations emanating from these jade pendants, Yen Zhaoge's eyes could not help but gradually light up. It really is a grand spirit stone, and it's even a grand spirit stone essence condensed from its essence. Yen Zhaoge muttered to himself, "As a symbol of identity, it seems that everyone who enters the clan has one. This means that this thing is not especially rare here." Feng Yunsheng, Ahu, Su Fei, and Inglongta looked at each other. Yen Zhaoge's current slightly miserly appearance was rather rare. Shui Fei thought for a moment, then quietly asked, "Why does Zhaoge mind so much?" "I have also heard of the Grand Spirit Stone. It is already extinct in our Eight Extremities world, having been extremely rare in pre-Great Calamity times. Still, it doesn't seem to be a particularly valuable item." Yen Zhaoge laughed. "That is because very few people know that these Grand Spirit Stones have great uses." Senior Apprentice Brother Su, "The people of the floating life world do not specialize in setting up spirit formations that make use of geographical advantages. Because they cultivate demonic blood, they focus more on creating battle formations that require many people to work together. However, because they have only been developing for a short period of time, their battle formations are still rather crude." Yen Zhaoge smacked his lips. "In researching ancient texts and excavating various legacies, I actually made a huge gain, which was a powerful battle formation of before the Great Calamity. Unfortunately, the requirements for setting up the formation are quite high. Even the cleverest housewife can't cook without rice, so I can only put it on the shelf. But if there is a large amount of Grand Spirit Stone essence, then one of the two conditions that restrict the formation will be solved." Yen Zhaoge surveyed his surroundings. Due to the spiritual chi of the earth veins, there are extremely few treasures in this floating life world that are suitable for us human martial practitioners to cultivate in. On my way here, I have not found anything of value. Going by the standards of the Eight Extremities world, it would not be too much to say that this is a barren, barbaric land. Yen Zhaoga's gaze fell on the jade pendant at the waist of the Snow Crane sect martial practitioner. However, things are different now. Feng, Yunsheng asked, you just said that you need a large amount of Great Spirit Stone essence. How much is considered a large amount? Yen Zhaoga said, nonchalantly, and above 500 kilograms. Feng Yunsheng and the others all had expressions on their faces that they knew this would happen. Senior apprentice brother, Yen, while I know that when you make a move, it has always been a heaven-shaking, earth-shattering, heaven-shaking, earth-shattering move of yours, is indeed not something that just anyone can afford to play with. Feng Yunsheng smiled bitterly. Great moves all require great capital as a foundation. Yen Zhaoga laughed. Is there? Xue Fei also shook his head and laughed bitterly. I have only heard of the Great Spirit Stone and have never heard of the Great Spirit Stone essence, but I know of the scenic blue jade and the scenic blue jade essence, the Fangqing Stone and the Fangqing Stone essence. As the name implies, the Great Spirit Stone essence should be condensed from the Great Spirit Stone's spirit energy essence. Generally speaking, the output of such essence condensation is at most 1% of the raw stone. You want more than 500 kilograms of Great Spirit Stone essence. Then how many ores do you need? How much ore was needed to mine and refine the raw stone? How big of a mine would it take to satisfy your needs? Xue Fei sighed. The Great Spirit Stones of the Eight Extremities world have long since gone extinct, but even if all the Great Spirit Stones produced in history were accumulated, it would still not be enough for you. The Great Spirit Stones of the floating life world might not be little, but would they be enough to satisfy your needs? Yen Zhaoga stroked his lower chin, chuckling, I finally have some interest in this floating life world. Don't pour cold water on me, who gave a simple and honest laugh. Young master, if you are interested in this place might be in for a calamity. Yen Zhaoga shrugged. It is still too early to say such things now. I first have to confirm some things with this Chief Su. Amidst their conversation, intense power fluctuations suddenly emanated from the distance. Those power fluctuations were the strongest they had encountered ever since having come to this floating life world. However, what truly caused the expressions of Yen Zhaoga and the others to change was that these power fluctuations did not come from demonic bloodline cultivators, instead being exactly the same as the martial Tao they cultivated in. Snowstorms assaulted the distant horizon. Yen Zhaoga and the others exchanged glances, turning false into real, refining aura into essence, the methods of essence spirit martial grandmasters. As the snowstorm neared, the snowy mountain shook, as it seemed like an avalanche was about to happen. However, the newcomer quickly halted her momentum, dispersing the snowstorm as she descended towards the snowy mountain. Light circulated as she landed before Yen Zhaoga and the others. Looking over, Yen Zhaoga saw that the other party was a middle-aged woman. She was garbed in white, her looks merely above average. However, she was graceful and magnanimous, possessing a certain air of her own. The surrounding Snow Crane sect martial practitioners all bowed in unison, "We greet, Chief." That white-clothed woman nodded towards them before her gaze fell on Yen Zhaoga, asking, I am Su Yun, the chief of the Snow Crane sect. I wonder how I should address you. Yen Zhaoga smiled, cupping his hands. I am surnamed Yen Zhaoga. Chief Su greets you. Even as she carefully appraised Yen Zhaoga, Su Yun asked, You said that you are a descendant of an old friend of mine, just that I do not know if you are a descendant or if you have some other relationship. Yen Zhaoga spread his palms apart, smiling. If you were here to seek revenge, we wouldn't be talking like this. Su Yun said mildly, Don't blame me for being suspicious. This is something that is very hard to say. You're right. Yen Zhaoga thought nothing of it as he flashed that jade hairpin with the image of a snow crane on it. This thing could also have been obtained from someone else before coming over to pass it off as their own, right? Su Yun said, "It's possible, but it's easy to verify it." Yen Zhaoga raised his brows slightly. "Oh," Su Yun said, "this snow crane hairpin is indeed Mrs. Original head ornament. I also know that Miss had refined your own blood essence into this hairpin. When it comes into contact with Mrs. Blood, it will react. Therefore, the verification is very simple. You just need to infuse your power into it and see if the jade hairpin will change." Stroking the snow crane hairpin with his finger, Yen Zhaoga smiled. "No wonder I felt that there was an inexplicable mechanism inscribed on it. However, could it be that he had predicted that someone would come here in search of his mother?" Su Yun shook her head. "This is a set of accessories that Miss casually forged for herself when cultivating in the blood sacrifice artifact forging technique. It is far from just a single one, just that it just happens to have this effect, making it convenient for us. It has to be of pure blood for it to be effective. Therefore, there is no need to worry about a fake obtaining a portion of a true person's essence blood and refining it into his own body to bluff his way through. From the looks of it, you also don't seem to have been coerced by someone." Swiveling his head to look at Feng, Yunsheng, Su Fei, Ahu, and Ing Long Tu, Yen Zhaoga suddenly laughed. "Why me and not my companions? You are actually already certain of my identity in your heart, right?" Looking at Yen Zhaoga, a hint of a smile finally blossomed on Su Yun's face. "Between your brows, there is a 40 to 50% resemblance to ladies. Especially when you smile, it is especially similar." Chapter 435. Holding the snow crane hairpin, Yen Zhaoga had a leisurely expression on his face. "From what I know, my mother has no other blood relatives." Su Yun nodded. "That is also what I know. Therefore, if she does, it would be a descendant." Yen Zhaoga asked rather interestedly, "If it is my father who comes looking for her, what then?" Su Yun smiled. "If it is son-in-law who comes looking for her, I would have no way of distinguishing him, only able to reject him outright. Therefore, if I offend son-in-law, there would be nothing I can do about it. Still, I believe that with ladies' eyesight, son-in-law will definitely not be bad. I should not have the ability to stop son-in-law." Yen Zhaoga's smile was rather strange. "That is to say that I am easy to bully." Su Yun shook her head, saying resolutely and decisively, "Whether or not I am a match for him, if someone wants to harm lady, I will fight him to the end." Yen Zhaoga was silent for a moment before he scanned the surrounding Snow Crane sect martial practitioners. Su Yun didn't use voice transmission when she spoke just now. Her voice spread out, and everyone in the surroundings heard it clearly. The Snow Crane sect martial practitioners all had blank, helpless expressions on their faces. In their innate impression, the strength of their chief often left them feeling that it was deep and immeasurable. While she always claimed that her cultivation base was still insufficient to reach the peak experts of the floating life world, just the power that she displayed was already extremely powerful. Others were unable to cultivate in the chi cultivation path, yet their chief was able to cultivate in it to an extremely profound level, not letting demonic bloodline cultivators monopolize her. As the only sect of the floating life world that did not cultivate in the bloodline of demonic beasts, instead cultivating in the traditional martial Tao of pre-Great Calamity times, the Snow Crane sect being able to occupy a place in the floating life world was not just because Su Yun's daughter had married the son of the chief of Green Dragon Mountain. Su Yun's own strength was similarly an important reason. From a certain perspective, it was also not that any random sect could form a marriage alliance with the son of the chief of Green Dragon Mountain. At this moment, however, as the Snow Crane sect martial practitioners looked at their chief, whom they usually revered like a divinity, Her tone was clearly respectful to the extreme, filled with reverence as she spoke of the lady that she spoke of. However, Su-yun didn't seem to feel anything unusual about this. Her expression was calm, and she spoke from her feelings as if it was a matter of course. Looking at her, Yen Zhaoge was silent for a moment before he slowly said, "It's not that there aren't people in this world who are not related by blood but have similar appearances, or even exactly the same. You are completely sincere. I will not make things difficult for you." Saying thus, Yen Zhaoge spread open his palm, holding the snow crane hairpin before him before sending a strand of his true essence within. The snow crane hairpin shook slightly within Yen Zhaoge's palm, a bright radiance suddenly flickering within. Amidst the radiance, the silhouette of a huge snow crane appeared on the snowy mountain. Then it spread its wings and let out a clear cry. Su-yun looked at the snow crane with a dazed expression. For a moment, her gaze actually lost focus. The crowd of snow crane sect martial practitioners similarly stared blankly at that gigantic snow crane. Some of them reacted quickly, and a look of realization appeared on their faces. Su-yun was the founder of the Snow Crane sect. While she had yet to die, in the ancestral hall of the Snow Crane sect, the disciples of the Snow Crane sect already had incense to worship. That incense was not Su-yun's, but that of a snow crane. There were many different kinds of rumors in the world. Some said that Su-yun had been saved by a snow crane, having had a fortuitous encounter afterwards, thus resulting in the current foundation of the Snow Crane sect. Some also said that all of Su-yun's martial arts had come from a snow crane. A more reliable rumor was that Su-yun had been taken in by an expert in the past, becoming both a servant and disciple. That expert had taken the name of the snow crane, having vanished without a trace afterwards. In gratitude for that expert's benevolence, Su-yun had established her sect as the Snow Crane sect, also using the name of the snow crane to worship it. The people of the Snow Crane sect, however, knew that the final rumor was true. While they did not understand why Su-yun did not directly revere that expert as the ancestor of the sect, not even directly worshipping the incense of the living, not even telling her descendants his name, instead using the snow crane as a substitute. That expert, however, had truly existed. He was precisely the source of the Snow Crane sect. Connecting this with Yen Zhaoge's earlier words of descendant of an old friend, the Snow Crane sect martial practitioners now gradually understood. Looking at that snow crane, Su-yun did not speak for a long time. After a while, she sighed, her gaze shifting downwards, falling on Yen Zhaoge once more. At this moment, her gaze that was on Yen Zhaoge clearly contained some respect, some warmth, even some excitement mixed within. This essence spirit, martial grandmaster, did something that caused everyone here to be slightly shocked at this moment. She did not hesitate in the slightest as she bowed deeply towards Yen Zhaoge before her. "Greetings, young master. It is Su-yun's honor to be able to see you." Yen Zhaoge's true essence roiled, only allowing her to bow halfway before he stopped her. Su-yun was taken aback. First, not speaking of how much strength would be required to stop her movements as an essence spirit martial grandmaster herself. As their true essences clashed, she could clearly feel that this youth of around 20 years of age before her was an essence spirit martial grandmaster just like her. Possessing such a cultivation base at such an age, how terrifying of a thing must it be? Should I say, truly worthy of being lady's son? Su-yun sighed in admiration within her heart. No, young master has surpassed his master. Feeling the fluctuations of Su-yun's true essence, Yen Zhaoge realized, life creation, heavenly scripture, one of the direct lineages of the jade, clear lineage. Indeed a little more solid than broad Creed Mountain's legacies. This mother of mine, what exactly is her background? Thoughts flashed through Yen Zhaoge's mind at lightning speed, but he quickly retracted them. first focusing on what was before him. Looking calmly at Su Yun, he said, "In imparting the life creation heavenly scripture to you, Mother did not view you as a maidservant. She did not take you as a disciple. You two are similar in age, so I will just call you Aunt Yun." Looking at Yen Zhaoge, Su Yun smiled. Young master is too kind to Su Yun. At this moment, she was already completely devoid of her previous solemnity. Having confirmed Yen Zhaoge's identity, she was completely as warm as a spring breeze. The people of the Snow Crane sect all felt rather awkward now. Earlier, they had been like facing a great enemy, yet their chief had been so humble at this moment, leaving them rather at a loss as to what to do. Su Yun's authority was unshakable. Even after experiencing today's events, the people of the Snow Crane sect were still unable to feel dissatisfied with her. However, some people were unable to come to terms with this, feeling despondent within their hearts, yet having nowhere to vent it. A well-built man of around 30 years of age swiveled his head to look at the people by his side, shaking his head slightly before bowing towards Yen Zhaoge, Snow Crane Sect's Chang, and greets young master Yen. His etiquette was also extremely humble and courteous. Eldest apprentice brother. The other Snow Crane Sect martial practitioners were even more shocked as they looked at their eldest apprentice brother. Chang'en's lips did not move as he sent a sound transmission through his orchi to his fellow disciples. Even if we do not look at their background, we also have to look at their cultivation bases. Not knowing how to send sound transmissions, the person beside him asked softly, "Eldest apprentice brother, you can see through their depths?" Chang'en wished he could stuff his mouth as he smiled at Yen Zhaoge, and the others while continuing to send via sound transmission. "I can't see through the others at all. I can only see that child's cultivation base. That child is at least an early outer aura martial scholar." Chang'en virtually said each word at a time. What cultivation base do you think the person leading him would have? Chapter 436. Early outer aura martial scholar, that youth of around 10 years of age. Hearing Chang'en's words, the other Snow Crane Sect martial practitioners all sucked in a breath of cold air. Unlike the others of the floating life world, the Snow Crane Sect martial practitioners were well aware of what the early outer aura martial scholar realm entailed. The fourth level of the martial scholar realm, the early outer aura stage, was the ultimate goal of most chi cultivators of the floating life world. Also, there were not many who could achieve it. However, the Ying Longtu before them, who was merely around 10 years of age, was already a late outer aura martial scholar. How could they not feel dizzy at this? Even Chang'en himself, upon discovering this, was greatly shocked as he was only able to stabilize his mind after a long while. As compared to Yen Zhaoge's identity, this discovery shocked Chang'en even more. And very quickly, connecting Ying Longtu's cultivation base to Yen Zhaoge, Su Fei, and the others, he felt cold sweat trickling down his back. When they had first heard that Yen Zhaoge's group had wreaked havoc in Kanghe City, Chang'en and the other Snow Crane Sect martial practitioners had not paid much attention to it. After all, the Furan Kingdom was merely one of the 36 kingdoms under the rule of the Blood Cloud clan, let alone massive entities like the Blood Cloud clan and Green Dragon Mountain. Even the Snow Crane Sect was much stronger than them. Now, however, Chang'en deeply felt that Yen Zhaoge and the others had probably not taken the Furan Kingdom seriously at all back then. Otherwise, the Furan Kingdom might have long since been destroyed. The Snow Crane Sect martial practitioners beside him were unable to recover for a long time, someone asking slowly, "Eldest apprentice brother, I'm not doubting you, but this is really too unbelievable. You couldn't have seen wrongly, right?" Chang'en sighed, not blaming his junior apprentice brother. Even he himself had initially thought that he had seen wrongly, only daring to be certain after confirming it a few times. You can't be blamed for not being able to hear it because most of your cultivation bases are insufficient. Chung, En said slowly. The pulse of that youth's blood is very faint, virtually inaudible. However, it is not weak, instead being heavy and smooth. You still remember? This is the phenomenon of blood resembling lead mercury that Master once spoke of, a characteristic that only appears after an early outer aura martial scholar has completed the second cleansing of the marrows. As Chang'an spoke, the remaining Snow Crane sect martial practitioners with higher cultivation bases had already simultaneously bowed towards Yen Zhaoge and the others. Seeing this, the other Snow Crane sect martial practitioners no longer had any doubts in their hearts as they hurriedly paid their respects. Newcomers greet young Master Yin. Some people also had a vague feeling in their hearts. That senior expert whom sect master Su Yun had always regarded as a deity, the founder of the Snow Crane sect, if he had a descendant, he should also have such an imposing manner and strength. Yen Zhaoge smiled and nodded towards them, but quickly retracted his attention, looking at Su Yun once more. Aunt Yun, about 20 years ago, did my mother return to the floating life world? Have you seen her? Su Yun gestured with her hand. This way, please. Young master, please come to my Snow Crane sect. We'll talk on the way. Yen Zhaoge nodded, saying goodbye to Feng, Yunsheng, Su Fei, and the others, introducing themselves to Su Yun before setting off together. Having already received the person, the Snow Crane sect martial practitioners had no need to remain in the outskirts of the snowy mountain as they all returned to the clan together. On the way, Su Yun sighed. While Lady never mentioned it, I can basically guess that she is not a native of our floating life world, instead coming from beyond the heavens. It was all thanks to Lady that I did not freeze to death by the roadside, even taking me in, and always staying by her side, imparting supreme martial arts to me. As young master says, Lady has never treated me as a servant. It was I myself who wanted to serve her. Otherwise, I really wouldn't know how I could repay her kindness. Su Yun was a little despondent, but Lady is not a person of this world. She would still have to leave at the end of the day. 30 years ago, Lady still left at the end of the day. I also don't know where she went. I wanted to ask, but also didn't dare to. Lady knew what I was thinking, only saying it in a joking manner. While she had considered bringing me along with her, she was afraid that I would be implicated and met with danger. It would instead be safer and happier for me to remain in the floating life world. I believed that Lady would not lie to me. Therefore, I listened to her and stayed behind, only praying for her every night. Hearing this, Yen Zhaoge's eyes narrowed slightly into slits. Met with danger? Thoughts flashed within his mind, but Yen Zhaoge did not speak as he continued listening to Su Yun. He heard Su Yun say, Young master asked me whether Lady had returned after leaving. I dare not be certain, because ever since Lady left 30 years ago, I have not been able to see her again. However, I feel that Lady has returned before. Yen Zhaoge raised his brows slightly. Was it 20 years ago? Su Yun said, I am also not certain of the exact time. It was around 16 years ago that I went to the Southern Territory. In a primordial forest there, I saw some things that felt like they were left behind by Lady. Yen Zhaoge's spirits rose. Over the past few days of study, while they were still not proficient in it, they could already generally understand some of the language of the floating life world. Hearing her words, they could not help but exchange looks as they thought of that half-broken stone carving that had been shoveled away. Indeed, Su Yun said, that was a stone carving that was left on a cliff. Because I went there 20 years ago, I knew that when Lady left 30 years ago, these stone carvings were not there. Therefore, I guessed that Lady had once returned to this floating life world. The meaning of the stone carving is hard to understand, seemingly possessing infinite profundities that I was unable to comprehend. Thinking about it now, perhaps it was left behind by lady and young master. I was blinded for a moment, cutting it off and taking it away, delaying young master's matters. Please punish me, young master. Yen Zhaoga shook his head. While you made me run a little longer, it was also because you missed my mother too much, not having known about it beforehand. How could I blame you? Instead, is this stone carving still in Aunt Yun's hands? Su Yun answered, It is enshrined in our Snow Crane sect's ancestral hall. Young master, following me back to the clan, you will immediately be able to see it. The group traversed the Jade Ridge snowy mountains, finally arriving at the main peak of the mountain range. The headquarters of the Snow Crane sect was established here. The entire clan was not large. After all, in the floating life world, chi cultivation and body cultivation were not mainstream. Those who could go against the flow like Su Yun were few and far between. This is my husband, Shen Nuo. At the entrance, Su Yun introduced Yen Zhaoga and the others to a middle-aged man with a resolute expression on his face. This Shen Nuo was a demonic bloodline cultivator. Seeing Yen Zhaoga, he bowed neither obsequiously nor haughtily. Young Master Yen. Yen Zhaoga nodded. Mr. Shen. Su Yun said, I will bring young master into the ancestral hall to see what lady left behind. If people from the outside world come, please temporarily receive them. Husband. Shen Nuo had a steady personality as she nodded. You can rest easy. Young master, please follow me. Su Yun led Yen Zhaoga's group straight into the Snow Crane sect's ancestral hall. Raising his head and gazing over, what entered Yen Zhaoga's eyes was an ice sculpture of a snow crane, wishing to soar high into the sky. To be continued. Chapter 437. Yen Zhaoga looked at that ice sculpture of the snow crane, which was lifelike and elegant. Beneath the ice sculpture of the snow crane was also a jade bracelet, which also had the image of a snow crane on it, looking to be of the same set as his own snow crane hairpin. Su Yun said, I've let young master see a joke. This was left behind by lady that year, and I've always kept it as a memento. If young master wants to take it away. Yen Zhaoga smiled. How could I? This was left behind by mother for you, Aunt Yun. Also, Aunt Yun, you can just call me Zhaoga. Su Yun smiled, raising her palm lightly. That ice sculpture of the snow crane emitted a bright glow before rising into the air. Amidst the glow, numerous spirit patterns intermingled, forming a small-scale formation which slowly opened up space, leading to a small-scale foreign dimension. Yen Zhaoga knew that this should be the Snow Crane sect's forbidden ground or sacred ground. Entering alongside Su Yun, a massive mountain rock appeared within the foreign dimension. Yen Zhaoga's gaze hardened slightly as he gazed at the mountain rock, seeing a large amount of strangely shaped characters inscribed upon it. Oh, something like a secret code. Yen Zhaoga's thoughts flashed at lightning speed as he recalled that before he had left Broad Creed Mountain back then, his father Yen Di had once told him many things. These things might not actually all be useful, but Yen Di also didn't know what exactly his son might encounter. Therefore, there was no harm in being prepared as he poured out everything that might be useful to Yen Zhaoga. After pondering for a moment, Yen Zhaoga extended his palm, infusing his true essence within the mountain rock. The characters on the mountain rock began rapidly changing. Yen Zhaoga extended his other hand, writing within the air with his finger. Numerous silhouettes seemed to have been inscribed onto the surface of the mountain rock, merging as one with the original spirit patterns. Su Yun looked at this scene rather curiously. After a while, Yen Zhaoga ceased his actions, the silhouettes intersecting and changing before finally coming to a halt. Meanwhile, the characters left behind on the surface of the mountain rock had already completely changed. Looking at those lines of characters, Yen Zhaoga nodded slowly. While there are some differences, they are extremely similar to the characters of before the Great Calamity, being even more ancient than the ones of the Eight Extremities world and the Floating Life world. Their lineage is clearer. Yen Zhaoge smiled. In his few memories, this mother of his had been extremely happy to delve into ancient texts and ancient characters. His interest in ancient texts and characters stemmed from what his mother, Xue Chuqing, had seen and heard when he was young. Perhaps this language that was extremely similar to the common language of pre-Great Calamity times was what Xue Chuqing had been used to before coming to the Floating Life world and the Eight Extremities world. Yen Zhaoge compared it to what he knew and had learnt while carefully studying the records left behind on the stone. Why can't you just say it directly? Do you have to go through so many twists and turns? If it's really inappropriate and inconvenient to talk about it, there's no need to leave a message, right? Yen Zhaoge pondered within his heart before analyzing the characters on the stone, his expression becoming increasingly strange the more he read. There are a total of 2 paths to the world beyond worlds. The most basic method is to reach the 4th level of the Martial Saint realm, surpassing the limits of the Great Thousand Worlds. Why don't you learn from me? With an artifact that can stabilize the dimension rift to protect yourself, you'll be able to search for the wounds of the sky. The corners of Yen Zhaoge's mouth twitched unceasingly. This tone, why does it sound like you're reminding me to bring an umbrella when it's raining outside? Also, this isn't a very important matter, but you suddenly remembered that you had forgotten to mention it, therefore casually leaving a message behind. What's with that feeling? Yen Zhaoge sighed. Father, what kind of wife did you find that year? Still, Yen Zhaoge's gaze turned slightly solemn. World beyond worlds. Wounds of the sky. What exactly has the original world become after the Great Calamity? Yen Zhaoge stroked his lower chin, pondering as a hint of a smile gradually appeared at the corners of his mouth. I'm getting more and more interested. After pondering for a moment, Yen Zhaoge retracted his thoughts. He already had a general idea of the contents of the characters on the stone. Still, Yen Zhaoge did not retract his palm as he instead continued infusing his true essence within. After a while, a change suddenly occurred on the stone. The originally tough stone suddenly became like soft mud. The stone caved in, forming a circular indentation. Yen Zhaoge observed the size of the indentation before taking out that half-round mirror that he had obtained when he had first arrived in the Floating Life world. When they had come over, they had been drawn in by the mechanism that his mother, Xue Chuqing, had left behind. This half-round mirror was the core of that mechanism. After activating the mechanism, this half-round mirror had temporarily lost its effects. Yen Zhaoge had always kept it by his side, hoping to find some clues to find the other half of the mirror. At this moment, this half-round mirror was accurately embedded within that circular indentation, occupying half of its space. Looking over, Yen Zhaoge saw that flowing water was actually gradually forming out of nowhere within the other half of the empty indentation, filling it up. Numerous scenes seemed to flicker on the surface of the water. Still, they were not stable enough, as they were strange and dazzling, making it hard for one to clearly see them. Yen Zhaoge crossed his arms before his chest. It looks like I'll have to wait for some time. Su Yun had been quietly waiting by the side all this time, looking at Yen Zhaoge. A warm smile appeared at the corners of her lips as she seemed to see Xue Chuqing, whom she had once served and followed on Yen Zhaoge's body. Yen Zhaoge swiveled his head. Aunt Yun, it looks like I'll still have to trouble you for some time. Su Yun smiled. Young master can stay as long as he wants. Yen Zhaoge asked, Right, Aunt Yun, are things like grand spirit stones very common in the Floating Life world? Su Yun said they can't be said to be common, but their production is still not bad. Yen Zhaoge pondered for a moment before asking, Where can I find them? Su Yun answered, The mines are rather scattered. There aren't any especially large ones, all of them being small and medium-sized, scattered all over the place. Yen Zhaoga nodded slowly. Now, a voice suddenly resounded from outside. "Mother! It's my daughter, Shun Rong." Su Yun first explained to Yen Zhaoga, who smiled and nodded. "I'll go out with you. Please don't let anyone else in for the time being. Aunt Yun." Su Yun said, "That is only natural." Leaving the flowing water by the cliff to accumulate on its own, Yen Zhaoga and Su Yun exited the foreign dimension together, returning to the Snow Crane Sect's ancestral temple in the outside world. A girl in her 20s was waiting there, looking extremely similar to Su Yun. Seeing Yen Zhaoga, Shunrong's gaze was rather curious. Still, she first bowed. "Shunrong greets, young master." From the way she addressed him, it was clear that she had already received instructions from her father, Shun Nuo. Also, even though she had already married into Green Dragon Mountain, Su Yun's status in her heart was extremely high. At the very least, she did not dare to act rashly in the slightest in front of Su Yun. Yen Zhaoga smiled, greeting her. "No need to be so polite. I'm older than you. You can just call me brother." Su Yun asked, "Rong, is there something over at Green Dragon Mountain?" Shenrong nodded. "Yes. Father-in-law and the others have already received news of the arrival of Brother Yan's group. Father-in-law sent me and husband over to send a letter inviting you and senior apprentice brother, Yen, to Green Dragon Mountain together." Chapter 438. Su Yun asked, "Other than inviting us as guests, is there any other news?" Glancing rather worriedly at Yen Zhaoga, Shenrong answered, "Yes, mother. Green Dragon Mountain has received news that the chief of the Blood Cloud clan has personally left the mountain and headed west. He has already entered the western domain governed by Green Dragon Mountain." Yen Zhaoga laughed lightly. "Coming for me?" Shenrong nodded. "That is how it is rumored." Yen Zhaoga smiled, not continuing on this topic, as he instead appraised Shenrong with a glance. "Oh, late inner aura martial scholar. You can already prepare for your breakthrough into the outer aura martial scholar realm." Swiveling his head to look at Su Yun, he smiled. "Aunt Yun, are you mother and daughter, the legendary living source physique?" Shunrong looked rather quizzically at Yen Zhaoga, Su Yun feeling rather taken aback as well. From their earlier conversation, Su Yun had been able to tell that Xue Chuqing had not mentioned the matter of her and the floating life world to Yen Zhaoga and Yen Di. Yen Zhaoga should not have known of her existence at the start, naturally not having understood her situation in detail. Replying to young master, "I indeed possess the living source physique. Inheriting my bloodline, Rong also possesses the living source physique." Su Yun sighed. Emotionally, Lady once said that the living source physique might not necessarily be passed down to her bloodline descendants. Afterwards, it was proven that this was indeed the case. My husband and I had a total of 3 children, but of the 3 of them, only Rong alone inherited my living source physique. Yen Zhaoga smiled. The possibility of the first child inheriting it is the greatest. At the same time, if your first child has already inherited your living source physique, your subsequent children would basically have no hope of inheriting it at all. Looking at Shenrong, he asked slowly, "Possessing the living source physique, cultivating in the martial Tao in this floating life world is exceptionally convenient. Of those under your tutelage, only Rong can inherit your legacy. Being able to attempt a breakthrough into the outer aura martial scholar realm at this age is something that only an extremely small number of people in my world can accomplish." Su Yun replied, "Young master is too kind to us chi and body cultivators. This floating life world is extremely lacking in spiritual chi, and resources are also very poor. But because there are too few chi and body refining martial artists, the resources are evenly distributed to everyone, which makes it seem very rich. Rong, in addition to having the living source body, also has some talent in martial arts cultivation. She can comprehend a thing or two from the supreme art that Miss left behind, which is why she has her current achievements. Yen Zhaoge asked, "Still, of your lineage's disciples, only Rong stands out. Wouldn't this arouse the suspicions of others?" Su Yun smiled faintly. In the past, Miss had said that you wouldn't forbid me from taking in disciples. Hence, the reason why I established the sect was to pass on the legacy of Miss Lost Art. Before the disciples enter the sect, they have already made it clear that learning is not easy, and they may not succeed. Those who are able to stay and persevere have relatively strong temperaments. Of course, there are also people who think that I am biased towards my daughter. Regarding this, I have my own way of dealing with it. Hearing her words, Yen Zhaoge smiled as well. The Su Yun who appeared benevolent in front of him might not necessarily be like this in front of her disciples. Aunt Yun, has the living source body been considered in the marriage alliance between Green Dragon Mountain and the Snow Crane sect? After laughing, Yen Zhaoge asked mildly. Su Yun answered, "More or less, this has always been taken into consideration. To tell you the truth, I have had many interactions with Green Dragon Mountain all these years. While it does not involve the secret arts that Miss taught me, I have imparted much of what I have gained in the process of cultivation to those of Green Dragon Mountain. As demonic bloodline cultivators, they are not too deeply versed in chi cultivation techniques. However, the stones of other mountains can be used to attack Jade. Green Dragon Mountain has gained quite a bit from my Snow Crane sect." Su Yun smiled, shaking her head. The chief of Green Dragon Mountain, that in-law of mine, has always concealed himself deeply. Actually, he has improved quite a bit over the years. While he cannot compare to the 3 demons, he is already gradually showing signs of surpassing the experts of the 4 clans. Perhaps Green Dragon Mountain really does have some thoughts about the child that Rong gives birth to in the future, hoping to have a descendant who possesses the strengths of both sides. However, Rong and her husband are rather in love with each other. That son-in-law of mine, I can tell that he is not faking it. Otherwise, I would also not have agreed to this marriage. Of course, Rong has not revealed misdirect lineage to Green Dragon Mountain. Shun Rong nodded lightly by the side. Yen Zhaoge nodded slightly. If that is the case, it would be for the best. Su Yun said, "Young master, if you do not wish to attend Green Dragon Mountain's invitation, I will reject it for you." Smiling non-committally, Yen Zhaoge suddenly said, "Right, Aunt Yun, I have always had a question that I have wanted to ask you. I was too busy just now and forgot about it." Su Yun said, "Ask away, young master." Yen Zhaoge's gaze flickered dimly. "Aunt Yun, you are at the 4th level of the Martial Grandmaster realm, an early essence spirit Martial Grandmaster. In Green Dragon Mountain, or perhaps in this floating life world, what level do you stand at? How many are there who are stronger than you, or who are on the same level as you? Other than that, there is something else." Saying thus, Yen Zhaoge swiped his finger in midair, forming an image of light. Within the image of light was a middle-aged man with a shrewd appearance. This man was precisely that person whom Yen Zhaoge and the others had met in the primordial forest when they had just arrived in the floating life world. This person cultivates in the bloodline of the 6-legged flying lightning leopard. I wonder if Aunt Yun knows who he is? As Yen Zhaoge and the others were guests at the Snow Crane sect, winds were currently surging and clouds were surging in the floating life world. The lands of the West Domain had always been the territory of Green Dragon Mountain. However, currently in the West Domain, gazing towards the southeast towards the south, numerous crimson clouds of blood could be seen appearing in the horizon. A martial practitioner of Green Dragon Mountain gazed at the clouds of blood that were sweeping over from the southeast, asking in a heavy tone, "What is it that Chief Lu has personally come to the West Domain without informing us?" The clouds of blood broke apart, green light flickering as a long-bearded, middle-aged man appeared. Behind him, numerous figures were indistinctly visible amidst the clouds of blood. The long-bearded, middle-aged man said coldly, "Someone of the Snow Crane sect under the protection of your Green Dragon Mountain caused a great disturbance in the south, starting a fight first. Yet you have come to feign ignorance now. If you wish to incriminate someone, you can always find a pretext." As the martial practitioner of Green Dragon Mountain said this, his attention was not placed on the long-bearded, middle-aged man, as he instead looked behind him. Amidst the numerous figures, the figure of a white-haired old man was indistinctly visible. A deep sense of fear appeared within the gaze of the martial practitioner of Green Dragon Mountain. That white-haired old man was the chief of the Blood Cloud clan, Lu Ming, one of the few experts of the floating life world. That long-bearded, middle-aged man had still wanted to speak when an ancient voice suddenly resounded from within the clouds of blood. "What need is there to say?" Saying thus, a streak of green light shot out from within the clouds of blood. That Green Dragon Mountain martial practitioner exclaimed in shock. Unable to react in time, his body was already cleaved apart at the waist by the green light. To be continued. Chapter 439. Located in the Western Domain, Green Dragon Mountain was a massive mountain range that spanned over 5,000 kilometers. Its main peak was known as Dragon Peak, located at the southern foothills of the Green Dragon Mountain range. It was also where Green Dragon Mountain, one of the 4 clans of the floating life world, was located. While Green Dragon Mountain was far from the Jade Ridge, snowy mountains, with the speed of Su Yun and the others, they still arrived very quickly. However, when those of Green Dragon Mountain saw Su Yun, they could not help but frown. "Chief Su, may I ask where the other esteemed guest is?" The one welcoming them was an old man dressed in a green robe with dragon patterns embroidered on it. He was a grand elder of Green Dragon Mountain. Su Yun asked instead of answering, "Is Chief Luo here?" That green-robed old man frowned, but still answered, "Chief is currently in the Great Hall." "It is just that," Su Yun said. "After seeing Chief Luo, I naturally have something to say. Elder Tong, come along as well." After a moment of silence, that green-robed elder, surnamed Tong, led Su Yun towards Dragon Peak. Arriving at Dragon Peak and entering the conference hall of Green Dragon Mountain, they saw a tall, mighty middle-aged man seated at the center, many people seated around him. Sweeping her gaze over, Su Yun discovered that most of the higher echelon experts and longtime elders of Green Dragon Mountain were already present. The middle-aged man seated, there was the current chief of Green Dragon Mountain, Luo Jinghao. He was the youngest of the 4 chiefs, but his cultivation base was such that no one of the floating life world dared to underestimate him. Luo Jinghao watched calmly as Elder Tong and Su Yun entered together. Beside him, a hale and hearty old man spoke, his voice like a great bell. "Chief Su, why are you alone?" This old man remembers that you are not the only guest that our clan has invited. Su Yun said mildly, "My young master is weary from his journey and wishes to rest first. I hope that Chief Luo and fellow elders will forgive him." Noticing how Su Yun addressed Yin Zhaoga, the people of Green Dragon Mountain exchanged looks. Chief Luo Jinghao did not speak. That hale and hearty old man's brows instantly knit together as he snorted coldly. "How arrogant! Could it be that you think that sweeping through a tiny Furan kingdom is such an incredible thing?" This old man said coldly. "Let me ask you, how many people here cannot destroy a tiny Furan kingdom all by themselves?" Su Yun's expression was calm. "Elder Chi, what are you saying? Since it's an invitation, the guest will naturally be grateful for the host's hospitality, but there's also the possibility of not being able to come. It's true that a guest should follow the host's lead, but if someone is forced to be a guest, then this matter will naturally change. Elder Chi snorted coldly. As a guest, you should have the awareness of being a guest. Chief Su, do not forget that the West Domain, the Jade Ridge, Snowy Mountains included, is still the territory of my Green Dragon Mountain at the end of the day. Sect leader Su should also be well aware of the attitude other places in the floating life world have towards you Qi cultivators. The world is vast, but how many places are there that are suitable for you? Su Yun's tone was indifferent. What? Elder Qi wants to drive my Snow Crane sect out of the West Domain. Elder Tong raised his hand to stop Elder Qi. He sighed and said, Sect Master Su is being too serious. That's not what Senior Brother Qi meant. Su Yun calmly said, If that's what you mean, then there's no harm. Elder Qi said coldly, How leisurely, causing trouble in the territory of the Blood Cloud clan, fleeing all the way west to the territory of my clan to seek refuge. If not for borrowing the power of my clan to intimidate the Blood Cloud clan, I wonder if that so-called young master of yours would still be as leisurely as he is now. I do want Chief Su to know one thing. The chief of the Blood Cloud clan, Lu Ming, has personally come out, leading the experts of his clan to the West Domain. Su Yun's expression did not change in the slightest. So, what does Elder Qi mean? If the Blood Cloud clan comes asking for him, your clan will just hand him over to them? The chief of Green Dragon Mountain, Luo Jinghao, now finally opened his mouth. Junior Sister Su, there's no need to goad me. My clan and the Blood Cloud clan have been at war for more than a year or two, neither of us being afraid of the other. However, Lu Ming having personally come out, this means that he definitely won't let this matter rest. My clan does not fear a battle with the Blood Cloud clan. However, there is no need for us to go into an all-out war with the Blood Cloud clan of the 4 clans over an unrelated person. In the great battle, those who bleed and die will all be of my clan. He looked calmly at Su Yun. If it was you, Shen Nuo, or the Snow Crane sect who offended the Blood Cloud clan, I would have no objections. Since my clan is the ruler of all the powers of the West Domain, we will not allow the West Domain to be encroached upon by others. Moreover, our clan and the Blood Cloud clan already have old enmity in the first place. At most, it would just be a battle. However, from what I know, the one who caused trouble this time is not someone of your Snow Crane sect. Luo Jinghao's voice was neither fast nor slow. Whatever you call him, it does not change the fact that he is an outsider who has nothing to do with my clan. Looking at Luo Jinghao, Su Yun nodded. In all fairness, your way of thinking is not completely without reason. Whether it is Chief Luo or Elder Qi, as well as the other elders seated here, all of you must first consider the pros and cons of Green Dragon Mountain. Still, aren't you looking at the problem a little too shallow? Su Yun said mildly, I'll say it clearly. Young Master is the son of my lady's first wife. All of my, Su Yun's, skills have all been imparted to me by my lady. You can all think for yourselves what sort of person my lady is. To Green Dragon Mountain, is it still not valuable enough to form such a good relationship with her? My lady has always been someone who distinguishes kindness and enmity clearly, while my lady is no longer involved in the mundane world now. Since young master has re-entered it, it is already sufficient to explain many problems. Hearing her words, Luo Jinghao said calmly, The master of Jade Crane is an otherworldly expert of legend. This Luo has always looked up to her greatly. Being able to form a good relationship with her is naturally a good thing. However, whether your master disdained to do so that year or was powerless to do so, the final result is that other than you, Chief Su she did not leave behind any traces in this world. Hearing his words, Su Yun's gaze sharpened somewhat. Luo Jinghao's expression was calm as ever as he said, mildly, your master and disciple lineage are both qi cultivators. Indeed, with Chief Su's help all these years, it is not that my Green Dragon Mountain has not gained anything. However, at the end of the day, we are all demonic bloodline cultivators, and the floating life world is the world of demonic bloodline cultivators. Su Yun knit her brows slightly. Chief Luo, there is something in your words. Please make it clear. Beside Luo Jinghao, Elder Qi also calmed his emotions at this moment as he said, that Pishio. Hearing his words, Su Yun's gaze instantly turned cold. Elder Tong said, Chief Su, do not misunderstand. My clan does not request for the Pishio to change owners. Still, it should not be difficult for you to provide us with some Pishio essence blood. Elder Qi said indifferently, Chief Su said earlier that there is no logic in forcing others to be guests. Thinking about it carefully, this old man feels that you are indeed right. Then, that young master of yours also has no logic in forcing my clan to help him, right? Su Yun's face was expressionless. These words are naturally not wrong. It is just that if my young master does not agree, will your clan put aside our former enmity with the Blood Cloud clan and join hands for once? Luo Jinghao answered calmly, yet resolutely, no. That is to say, just watching from the sidelines. Su Yun suddenly smiled. While I feel regretful for your clan's short-sightedness, it is still a pretty good result. Hearing her words, Luo Jinghao and the others all frowned, not understanding what she meant. Now someone suddenly reported, the chief of the Blood Cloud clan, Lu Ming, has arrived in the West Domain. Our clan's elder, who went to negotiate with him, was slain by him on the spot. Everyone was in an uproar, first shocked and enraged, then puzzled. How can the Blood Cloud clan be so arrogant and despotic? Green Dragon Mountain was not willing to lightly start an all-out war with the Blood Cloud clan. Normally speaking, wouldn't the Blood Cloud clan be the same as well? Immediately afterwards, another person came to report. Abnormalities have been discovered in the north and east, respectively, from the Blazing Fire clan and the Thunder Rumbling clan. It seems that a large number of experts have left their mountains, rushing towards our west domain. The Blazing Fire clan and the Thunder Rumbling clan were the other two great clans of the four clans alongside Green Dragon Mountain and the Blood Cloud clan. While their earlier doubts had been resolved, the hearts of those of Green Dragon Mountain grew increasingly heavy. To be continued. Chapter 440. It was not just the Blood Cloud clan. The other two clans of the four great clans, the Blazing Fire clan and the Thunder Rumbling clan, had attacked as well. The already tense atmosphere in the hall instantly became even heavier, almost suffocating. Someone looked straight at Su Yun, apart from the Blood Cloud clan. You also offended the Blazing Fire clan and the Thunder Rumbling clan? The pressure caused by the other three clans joining hands to invade Green Dragon Mountain was no longer something that the Blood Cloud clan alone could compare to. If it was just the Blood Cloud clan alone, while Green Dragon Mountain would not be willing to completely fall out with them, they would still be able to deal with them with relative ease. Now, however, there was a feeling of a mount tie pressuring down on them. Su Yun looked at Luo Jinghao calmly. Luo Jinghao frowned. After a long time, he said, from the looks of it, it is no longer just for the Pishio, but also for our sect. Elder Qi, Elder Tong, and the others felt a chill down their spines. Facing the combined attacks of the other three clans, if their target was purely Yen Zhaoga's group, Green Dragon Mountain might really have to consider whether they should take the initiative to capture Yen Zhaoga and the others and hand them over. However, If the other three sects had really already reached an agreement, their target being Green Dragon Mountain, Yen Zhaoga, and the Pishio might also be one of their targets. However, they were already unable to satisfy the appetite of the Blood Cloud clan and the others. From a certain perspective, it was more like an excuse, a name. Without the excuse of Yen Zhaoga and Pan Pan, the Blood Cloud clan, the Thunder Rumbling clan, and the Blazing Fire clan would also find other excuses. There is no turning back. Elder Tong said, hatefully, why didn't we receive any news at all? Aren't they afraid that their homes will be raided? Currently, in the floating life world, there were currently 5 types of first-grade demonic beast bloodlines. They were the mixed blood Swanee, green bird, golden ape, green hornless dragon, and fire crow. The mixed blood swan, Nee's bloodline, was owned by the Thunder Rumbling clan. The Thunder Rumbling clan had once captured an injured mixed blood swan and I, but this powerful demonic beast escaped. Therefore, the mixed blood swan and I had always hated the Thunder Rumbling clan. At the same time, among the 3 demons, the Thunder Demon was an expert of the Thunder Rumbling clan. After awakening his demonic beast bloodline, he became a half-demon warrior. The relationship between the Thunder Beastkin and the Thunder Rumbling sect was not harmonious either. In addition, the pure demonic beast, mixed blood Tao Wu, the 3 of them opposed each other and had many conflicts with each other. The Fire Crow bloodline belonged to the Blazing Fire clan. Back then, they had obtained the bloodline by chance. However, the Blazing Fire clan's demonic bloodline martial artists were viewed with hostility by the Fire Crows themselves. The bloodline of the Bluebird was possessed by the Blood Cloud clan. One of the 3 demons, the Phoenix Demon, was a semi-demonized martial practitioner of the Blood Cloud clan, having been on extremely bad terms with his former clan. However, what was more advantageous to the Blood Cloud clan was that the pure demonic beast, the Bluebird, had a comparatively mild temperament, as it had always resided at the headquarters of the Blood Cloud clan, receiving the support of the Blood Cloud clan. Therefore, the chief of the Blood Cloud clan, Lu Ming, had less reservations in leaving the clan. Even if the Phoenix Demon invaded, there would still be the Bluebird watching over the clan. The Thunder Rumbling clan and the Blazing Fire clan had more constraints. Luo Jinghao's face was sunken as water. I fear that this was premeditated long ago. The Blood Cloud clan intentionally drew our attention, while the Thunder Rumbling clan and the Blazing Fire clan created a false front to deceive us, acting in secret. Elder Chi's expression was ugly to the extreme. The Thunder Demon and that mixed blood Swanee have most likely clashed, giving the Thunder Rumbling clan some free time. The Fire Crow might also have been held up for reasons unknown to us, allowing the Blazing Fire clan to have nothing to worry about. Luo Jinghao stood up, saying decisively, "Gather the ordinary disciples and arrange for them to evacuate, avoiding unnecessary casualties. Bring out the dragon bone chain and prepare for battle." Everyone's expressions were grave to the extreme. This tribulation before them was not something that Green Dragon Mountain would be able to tide through easily, as they might be faced with extinction at any moment. Looking at Su Yun at this moment, they were stunned to discover that this chief of the Snow Crane sect was still as stable as a mountain. Elder Chi snorted. "No eggs remain intact when the nest is overturned." Su Yun smiled mildly. "I think so too." Hearing her words, everyone was even more taken aback. In the lands of the West Domain, blood clouds obscured the sky, temporarily not advancing. A white-haired old man sat at the center of the blood clouds, surrounded by a crowd of Blood Cloud clan martial practitioners. Before the old man was placed a blood-red treasured gourd, patterns of auspicious clouds engraved on its surface. From the mouth of the gourd rose a blood-red mist, merging into the surrounding blood clouds. After a long time, The white-haired old man who was resting with his eyes closed suddenly opened his eyes, first gazing towards the east. There, the roiling sound of thunder resounded, deafening to the ears. As the light of thunder neared, the all-encompassing purple clouds surged, the light of thunder occasionally flickering within. The purple thundercloud approached and faced the blood cloud from a distance. It also stopped in its tracks, not in a hurry to advance. The white-haired old man nodded slightly, closing his eyes and resting once more. Both sides seemed not to care about the crux of speed in war. After who knew how long, an all-encompassing great fire suddenly swept over from the northern horizon, the roiling fiery light instantly transforming into a sea of flames. Within the sea of flames, numerous fire crows appeared, forming a formation that seemed as though they wanted to incinerate the heavens and boil the sea. That momentum actually seemed even more violent and ferocious than that of the blood clouds and thunder clouds. The white-haired old man opened his eyes once more, slowly saying, "Now that the three clans have all arrived, let us make our move." From within the Fire Crow Grand Formation, a voice resounded. "Before we make our move, let's first settle things, lest we end up becoming a laughingstock for Green Dragon Mountain when the time comes." "Is everything as previously agreed?" The white-haired old man within the blood clouds said, "That's right. Everyone has a share of the Pishio's essence blood. My blood cloud clan wants to safeguard that Pishio. In exchange, my clan will give up the green scaly dragon bloodline and its supreme treasure, the dragon bone chain." From within the thunderclouds, the roiling sound of thunder resounded. "Other than the Pishio's essence blood, my thunder rumbling clan also wants the dragon bone chain." The voice from within the Fire Crow Grand Formation resounded once more. "My blazing fire clan wants the Pishio's essence blood and the green scaly dragon bloodline of Green Dragon Mountain." The white-haired old man said, "The lands of the West Domain shall be divided equally between the three clans. Everything as previously agreed, Green Dragon Mountain and the Snow Crane sect shall become history this time. As for the other powers attached to Green Dragon Mountain, those who submit shall prosper, those who resist shall perish." Amidst his words, the previously still blood clouds, thunder clouds, and sea of flames mightily shuddered together, merging into a destructive torrent as they simultaneously headed west. There were those who resisted along the way. As the blood clouds, thunder clouds, and sea of flames surged forward, everything was instantly reduced to nothingness. There were Green Dragon Mountain disciples who stood firm and unyielding, swearing not to retreat even in death as they resisted the invading enemies. However, the gap between the two sides was just too great. With a flash of green light amidst the blood clouds, that Green Dragon Mountain martial practitioner's head was separated from his body. Seeing that the enemy's momentum was too great, some could only retreat and flee. However, as the light of thunder flickered, they caught up to the retreating Green Dragon Mountain disciples, blasting them into smithereens, not leaving any survivors. As some Snow Crane sect disciples fled, a cold snort resounded amidst the surging sea of flames. Chi Cultivator! Swept by the great flames, that Snow Crane sect disciple was instantly burnt into charcoal, not even his bones remaining. The destructive torrent swept through the great lands of the West Domain, shooting straight towards the Green Dragon Mountain range. All those of Green Dragon Mountain and the Snow Crane sect were slaughtered to the last. Those of other powers who dared to stand in their way were also slaughtered without mercy, wherever the torrent crushed down. The voice of the god of death resounded. Green Dragon Mountain and the Snow Crane sect have harbored a calamity that will bring calamity to our entire floating life world. Today, our three clans will join hands to suppress the Green Dragon sect, bringing order to the world. Everyone else, do not make a mistake. The bigwigs of the three clans were seated. Suddenly, their gazes flickered slightly as they gazed into the distance. In the distant horizon, light suddenly lit up. "Who goes there?" The white-haired old man roared coldly. From the light in the horizon, a mild voice resounded. "Me? I should be the calamity that you speak of, the one that will bring calamity to the entire floating life world." To be continued. Chapter 441. The voice from afar was calm and indifferent. His voice wasn't loud, but it seemed to ring in the ears of everyone from the Blood Cloud sect, the Thunderfire sect, and the Thunder Rumbling sect. Just as everyone was feeling apprehensive, they saw the light in the distance become brighter and more dazzling. It was clearly a sword light that came from the western horizon. Along with the sword light, a dragon's roar rang out, piercing through the sky and suppressing the thunder and the cries of the fire crows. The sword light sped over, arriving before everyone in the blink of an eye. It was first aimed at those of the Blood Cloud clan. A single sword cleaving through the blood-colored smoke. The white-haired old man's heart sank slightly. Back in the Furan kingdom, these foreigners indeed did not go all out. The sword light flashed and suddenly disappeared. What appeared in front of everyone was a young man wearing a white robe and a blue robe with a black border. This youth was naturally Yen Zhaoga. Looking at Yen Zhaoga, the white-haired old man asked, "You are that outsider who is related to the Snow Crane sect?" Yen Zhaoga said mildly, "That's right." The white-haired old man asked, "Then you have appeared here on your own accord so as not to implicate the Snow Crane sect and Green Dragon Mountain?" Yen Zhaoga tilted his head, looking at the people of the 3 floating lives sects before him. "What you have said is merely to find a dignified excuse for kicking down Green Dragon Mountain's headquarters. Whether or not I appear here, you will still be going to attack Dragon Peak and the Jade Ridge snowy mountains." The sound of rolling thunder could be heard from within the thunder clouds. "You can see it clearly, and I can see that your cultivation base is extraordinary, far surpassing the rumors. But it's useless unless the 3 demons gather together. No one can stop us from advancing. If you're sensible and hand over the Pisho of your own accord, I might still spare your life. However, Green Dragon Mountain and the Snow Crane sect are destined to perish." A voice rang out from within the Fire Crow formation. "Why waste your breath on a dead person?" Roiling flames surged, transforming into 2 wings of flame which swept over towards Yen Zhaoga. It was a longtime elder of the Blazing Fire clan who made a move. Yen Zhaoga stood where he was, not moving in the slightest as he allowed the flames to assault his body. However, as they neared Yen Zhaoga's body, these flames suddenly dispersed on their own. Yen Zhaoga completely ignored the flames that shot towards him as he continued calmly, "You are mistaken about one thing. I have no interest in helping Green Dragon Mountain block a calamity, whether Green Dragon Mountain lives or dies. It also has nothing to do with me. The reason why I'm here is because I finally figured out something not long ago." As Yen Zhaoga spoke, a cold snort resounded from within the grand formation of fire crows, flames that were much more violent than before surging into the skies, assaulting him. The chief of the Blazing Fire clan, one of the top 10 human experts of the floating life world, had made his move. True, violent flames enveloped the heavens and covered the earth as they swept over towards Yen Zhaoga. Looking at the all-encompassing flames, Yen Zhaoga faced them calmly, the acupoints of his entire body shuddering as his entire true essence turned into extreme coldness. Numerous streams of icy cold, bone-piercing chi were born from Yen Zhaoga's acupoints, before transforming into numerous ice dragons, roaring in unison. Being roared by these ice dragons, all the demonic blood martial artists present, including the masters of Shui Yun, Lei Ming, and Raging Fire sects, regardless of their cultivation, felt a shiver from the depths of their souls. It was as if a subject was meeting their king. and the fear and subservience they felt was uncontrollable. True dragon bloodline? How is this possible? Could it be that he is also a demonic blood martial artist? Or is it a true dragon bloodline that surpasses the first grade and has been refined into his body? Everyone was momentarily taken aback, but what followed next was endless greed. Now, not just the chief of the Blazing Fire clan, even the chief of the Blood Cloud clan, that white-haired old man Lu Ming, and the chief of the Thunder Rumbling clan all grew restless. Yan Zhaoge's expression remained calm as the power that had been born from refining the flesh and blood essence of the ice dragon corpse was completely transformed into his own true essence, a terrifying extreme coldness instantly sealing the heavens and the earth. The blazing fire unleashed by the chief of the Blazing Fire clan also seemed to have substance, as it was frozen along with it. The extreme coldness caused the blazing fire in everyone's hearts to cool down slightly. Yan Zhaoge continued. There were a few times earlier when I had felt that something was very wrong, just that I had never been able to confirm it. Not long ago, I finally verified the suspicions within my heart. As he said thus, Yan Zhaoge raised his hand, his index and middle fingers forming a sword as a sword light formed of his true essence chopped out. Numerous ice dragons roared as they flew upwards, the sword light taking the form of a dragon as it pierced through the horizon, heading straight for the chief of the Blazing Fire clan. Under everyone's shocked gazes, the protective flames of the chief of the Blazing Fire clan were directly extinguished. Patterns of light surfaced all over his body, his pupils turning a dazzling fiery red. However, he was still powerless to resist the vigorous sword light that roared like a dragon. Amidst the roar of the dragon was Yan Zhaoge's mild voice. Having arrived in a world that is completely foreign to me, I chose to keep a low profile, first observing patiently and gathering information, understanding the situation. Only then would I be able to accurately determine my position. After all, this is not like the place where I was born, where I have the support of seniors of my clan. The sword light shocked the heavens as the chief of the Blazing Fire clan was powerless to resist it. He let out a strange howl as the Fire Crow Grand Formation behind him moved up together, bolstering him with their power as they helped their chief resist this terrifying coiling dragon sleeve of Yan Zhaoge's. The Blazing Fire clan was not like Green Dragon Mountain, who had the Dragon Bone Chain, the Blood Cloud clan, who had the Blood Cloud Gourd, and the Blue Bird. What they relied on to stand tall in the floating life world was the #1 battle formation in the floating life world, the raging Inferno Demon Slaughtering Formation, his sword light being blocked. Yan Zhaoge didn't care in the slightest, but actually, I don't really like this style of being careful in everything. Being unrestrained is my true nature. When I first came here, I was worried. I hoped that this place wouldn't pose any threat to the place I was born in. Yan Zhaoge's sword light circulated as he casually brandished it, but afterwards I gradually discovered that it was not like that at all. As Yan Zhaoge said this, he threw out a skeleton. Seeing this, the pupils of those of the Blood Cloud clan all dilated. It was clearly the skeleton of a huge, 6-legged flying lightning leopard. Yan Zhaoge said neither hurriedly nor slowly, I heard that the Blood Cloud clan has a pair of master and disciple who both cultivate in the bloodline of the 6-legged flying lightning leopard. The master, the Leopard King Ling Gang, is a longtime elder of the clan, possessing some ability. The disciple, the Little Leopard King, He Taicheng, is also a famed expert long ago. Because of this, I've always thought that the person I killed so easily was He Taicheng. Yan Zhaoge drew the outline of the first demonic bloodline cultivator he had clashed with back then. In the end, only recently did I learn that this person was not the disciple, the Little Leopard King, but the master, the Leopard King, the so-called longtime elder of the Blood Cloud clan. Yen Zhaoga gazed at the chief of the Blood Cloud clan. Lu Ming, do you know how I feel now? Lu Ming's gaze tightened as he saw Yen Zhaoga suddenly flick his right hand, a clear sword light flying out from within his sleeve, its blade flickering crimson. High-grade spirit artifact, the Green Abyss Sword. Yen Zhaoga forced the Blazing Fire Demon slaughtering grand formation of the Blazing Fire clan into retreat with a single sword, his second sword chopping towards the Blood Cloud clan. The blood clouds immediately shattered, the terrifying sword light directly chopping down on that blood-red treasured gourd. The corners of Yen Zhaoga's mouth now arched slightly upwards. Just now, you seem to say that I am a tribulation that will bring calamity upon the entire floating life world. Actually, I think what you said makes sense. To be continued.